Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Friday, August 14th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Friday. It has been a long week. It has been a volatile week. I think it's been, honestly, if you're invested in pretty much any sector, space, semis, software, hyperscalers, a green week. And it's been one of those weeks that just reminds you betting on the future of innovation and growth is something that has always worked. And after the month that we had in July, after honestly the first couple of days we had in August, it was one of those weeks where you just needed to see the market rebound, not even to all-time highs, even though the S&P did hit all-time highs, but rebound to things that felt more reasonable for companies that were obviously growing, obviously compounding earnings. And I think after all the semiconductor earnings, Nebius and CoreWeave ended up being the thing that got the market to remember, along with that Jensen $500 billion deal, which didn't even do anything for the market and came out of nowhere on Monday night. But you put all that together, along with the momentum we're seeing in the macro with inflation at least starting to dissipate a little bit. And that's how you get the week that we got this week. So yeah, a lot to talk about. A lot of stuff has actually happened over the past 24 hours. If you look at the pre-markets, we are pretty green in a variety of sectors. Software had a hell of a day yesterday. Reddit, congrats to my Reddit people. S&P 500. It was a matter of time for Reddit to get there. SoFi is next. SoFi is next. I don't know when it's going to happen. I would imagine if it doesn't happen this year, it absolutely should have the chance to happen in 2027. But that was a big thing for the software sector, for software companies against the S&P 500. Also, Workday getting a private acquisition offer from a private equity firm was also a big deal, because the whole narrative over the past couple of months has been that private equity hates software. Well, Workday just got a $50 billion offer yesterday. You know, maybe the market doesn't hate software as much. That created an intense rally. You had SanDisk's memory investor day yesterday. SanDisk up another 6% in the pre-market. We'll talk about the memory trade that was up 13% yesterday. That ignited more momentum across all of the semiconductors. I mean, every part of the market that you wanted to see working started to work yesterday. And that's what led the S&P 500 all-time highs. Nubank crushed earnings. We'll talk about them. 14% in the pre-market. Nubank has been flat for basically a year after 50% growth quarters, I think, for like the last 5 quarters. So this is, you know, sometimes growth becomes undeniable if you keep executing. And the international name's getting a little bit of a bid. And now you have Nubank right there, up 14%. So it's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy, crazy, crazy week. So much has happened this week, so much to analyze. But that's also why, you know, I think all of us care so much about equities and markets and interest rates and all this stuff, because you analyze all this stuff to have weeks like this week, which it was indeed one of those weeks. Lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy Friday. It's felt like a very long week for me. I wonder if it's felt like that for you. I mean, like, it was one of those weeks where like you would forget that you even had certain earnings this week or during the week. And then last week, you know, SpaceX, AMD, Palantir, you had all these companies reporting. And it's like the first couple of weeks of August has just been an incredible whirlwind of emotions ever since what happened in July. But it does feel like we're on track to get back in the right direction, and hopefully that momentum can continue. And if it does, you know, we can keep the party going in this AI revolution bull market that we are seeing. Yes, today I work at Best Buy. A couple of days ago was UPS. Best Buy has always had my heart, and top button on a Friday. Can't have the button not topped on a Friday, and that's what we got. Put in the chat where you're watching from. We usually do this every Friday. Put in the chat where you are watching from. We got a bunch of different updates to get into. Oil's actually down in the pre-market, which is really nice as well. That could create an overall bid. Now, it is Friday, so you have options expiring. You don't know what happens on Friday. Maybe the market decides to sell off for, you know, whatever reason. But even if it does, dude, even if we have like a 1-2% down day on the S&P, a lot of these stocks are still going to be at levels that they were not at anywhere in near July. And the fact that no sector is taking away from the other sector is really exciting to me. It's really, really exciting to see how it's playing out, which, you know, continues to mean I really do feel like that momentum for the S&P 500 and that broadening out story that we've been waiting for is happening in front of us. Now, this is also when people get really greedy. This is when volatility dies down. And so people kind of don't think about what could go wrong. And I think it's always important to be skeptical. But nonetheless, I think we analyze the bear case pretty much every single day. And the question just becomes, how aggressive does that bear case need to be to get back to levels that we were at in July? And, you know, time will tell. But as of now, the companies that need to execute, they are executing. And I think that's why many of these stocks are being rewarded. Look at Tesla. Tesla was freaking below 300 a couple weeks ago, 340 right here in the pre-market. Google at 346. They got a 515 upgrade. And then Meta trying to get back to 600 in the pre-market. SanDisk, again, 1625. Netflix down a little bit. and then Reddit up 12% on that S&P 500 news. We got Donovan in Georgia. We got Matt from Sydney, Australia. Again, I tried that Vegemite nonsense. I don't know how I really can't believe you guys eat that stuff every morning with bread, but to each their own. June from San Diego. Michelle from Houston. Thank you for being here. We got Mary from Canada. Mary, thank you for being here. Mary was at, I think, 3 of the meetups this year. I'll have more information on meetups next year. Got to do a lot of planning for it, but we will have more meetups next year, and I'll have a lot more information on what it's going to look like. We got Connie from Maryland. We got Cincinnati. We got France. We got Lithuania, Florida, Lebanon, Belgium. Dude, every time, I see people across from, not in the United States, it blows my mind, dude. It is the craziest thing to have an international community come here every morning. I mean, I'm very, very grateful for it. But we'll talk about AMAT earnings as well. Their earnings were good. It's just the stock was up 80% this year. It wasn't. Is it still down 10%? It was. It's down 6%. It was good. It just wasn't that good, right? It was one of those things where the beats weren't as well as they needed to be, and you're going to have that in these companies which have been executing so well that the market is kind of priced in a lot of their premium already. But the earnings itself was good. Cyprus, we got Germany, we got Portugal, we got Poland, a lot of Germany. Kyle from the UK, I love it. Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, every afternoon for some of my international folks, not in the morning. Ireland, I'm not going to do it. Don't worry, I'm not going to do it. I love my Ireland folks, though. I love my Ireland folks. Because when I go to Ireland, no, I'm not going to do it. You know what? It's Friday. When I go to Ireland, I just want to make sure I see Dublin. Because I want to be doubling my money, baby. Friday, market open. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We had to do it. We absolutely had to. I think I've done it like 15 times at this point. At some point, we're going to retire it. But not today. Not on a week like this. And for all the new people, by the way, can people put in the chat if you've discovered the channel in like the past 2 months or 3 months? Like, because there were some comments I got the other day of people just being like, do you do this every day? And like, someone said, I'm new to the market and this is super overwhelming, but like, I'm going to try to listen in every day. I'm very curious for people that have just discovered it. Because hopefully if you're new to the markets, the stream can be a way to kind of like indulge yourself into the consciousness that is the stock market, and eventually it becomes less overwhelming and easier to keep up and eventually allocate capital and have that capital compound in what is the greatest, I think, pursuit of financial freedom that's out there, which is the equity markets. And so hopefully a lot more people feel comfortable about it. Wow, 2 months, 3 months, 1 month. Gene, 4 years. I know a lot of my OGs have been here for a while. That's incredible, man. New viewers already left after that joke. Oh my gosh. Sunny says, I found you 3 weeks ago and I've been watching you every morning. Man, that's crazy, guys. That it means the world. It really, really means the world. It's one of those things. Sometimes you think back and be like, 4 years ago, man, there was like 80 people and you were just, every new person that showed up in the stream, you were just like, yo, what's up? What's your name? Right? It's obviously hard to do that when the audience grows, but it's one of those things where you just sit back and you're like, you know what? The one thing I've been thinking about is no matter what happens to you in life, the one thing that you can control is your work ethic. And it's like, whether things go your way or don't go your way, or you fail at stuff or you're successful at stuff, like the one thing you need to do to be undeniable is not let anyone knock your hustle. And I feel like for some reason that part of like my life philosophy has always been so strong. And it's like, no matter what happens in life, you don't know how it's going to play out, but like, you just don't stop working. You don't freaking stop working, because you never know. You never know. There might just be a way to grow and compound and, build a community of people that really care and grow that community and do it the right way, do it the ethical way, not in the way that takes advantage of people. And that's, it's been the greatest journey of my life. So deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate everyone who shows up. And I'll keep showing up. You guys give me the inspiration to keep showing up every single day and keep committing myself to it. It really is like a 24-hour thing, right? You wake up and you're ingested in markets because you need to be able to speak about it, communicate about it. Before you go to sleep, you're ingested in markets. As soon as you wake up, you're ingested. It's like, it's a constant grind of just caring about what's going on so that the content can be better to deliver to everybody. So Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all for being here. Let's get into it on this Friday morning. So let's start off with memory, because yesterday SanDisk did some stuff that was really, really important. And today Elon kind of confirmed how important what SanDisk did. And effectively, I think Elon's telling everybody to buy memory stocks. So someone tweeted that memory, not compute, is the rate limiter of the agentic era. And Elon says few realize this. Elon has talked about Micron 2 times publicly over the past 2 months on very big stages on these earnings calls or at conferences. And he's basically been thanking Micron for giving them the capacity they need to actually be able to, build out their chips, build out their AI business, and then obviously their Terafab's going to need a ton of memory as well. So you've got the SanDisk Investor Day that basically said the same thing they said on earnings, but they said it in a way that I think the street was able to digest it more. They also gave some guidance for 2028 to 2030, and they said we're guiding for mid to high teens revenue growth, 80% non-GAAP gross margins, 50% adjusted free cash flow margins. We're going to give all the excess cash flow we have back to shareholders. They effectively said this on the earnings, but the way they guided for it, I think that got the street to be a bit more excited about the overall TAM of the NAND market, which is going to be $500 billion by 2027. And that's massive, right? Because SanDisk is not going to get all that $500 billion, but the fact that there's $500 billion to go out for, the market cap's like $250 billion. They're growing at the rate they're growing, 140%. I don't know if the trade's going to last 5 years, but the trade is likely going to last a lot longer than some people think. And, even though there are some structural concerns with memory that, SanDisk was down 10%, everyone would be screaming about how it's cyclical. That's fair. That's just the nature of how it plays out. If it's being respected by the street and the earnings momentum is compounding and you don't think supply is coming online anytime soon, yeah, the memory trade is still there. And so I think Elon's argument is just like this memory trade's not going away anytime soon because of the amount of capacity we need. And, that's why I think a lot more people have been excited about it. Then you had JP Morgan, which, why not? Resuming coverage on SanDisk. I didn't know JP Morgan stopped covering SanDisk. I was like, when did they stop covering SanDisk on like July 29th? Was it July 29th where they were like, yeah, SanDisk at $1,000, we can't cover this anymore with our $2,000 price target. And now after it goes to $1,600, which by the way is a 60% move from the lows. And it's still down 40% from the highs. It's kind of crazy how some of these stocks are still, one could argue, undervalued compared to their overall highs, but have, just had a massive bounce, which is why, buying the dip around that early August, late July time period has paid off for so many investors. Now they're resuming coverage. So once again, the supposedly smartest people in the world on Wall Street working at these amazing large institutions, they go up and down with their coverage just based on price action. I think that's what's happening right now. They said, in our view, SanDisk is in many respects uniquely positioned to capture the ongoing structural inflation in NAND demand driven by rapid growth in AI inference, with 3 dynamics underpinning our overweight thesis. And it goes down to what basically they said on the earnings print a couple weeks ago and on the Investor Day. So from that perspective, you have the memory trade continuing to be strong. I think the memory trade is going to continue today. I think it's going to be a big day for a lot of traders that are finally seeing the momentum come back to memory. Look at Micron, 981, trying to finally get back to 1,000 after basically 2 weeks of not being able to touch it. And then SanDisk, I think, if Micron gets back to like 1,100, SanDisk is probably going to be pushing 2,000. You have Western Digital, Seagate, all of those names. Obviously, Elon's tweet this morning getting memory to be excited. And that's helping all the other semiconductors as well. Now, CoreWeave and Nebius were the names that kind of catapulted the semiconductor rally. They're taking a breather. Nebius is taking a breather because there was a Hunter Brook media article saying that their New Jersey data center is being delayed. Nebius came out and said this is not going to be a material concern. Nonetheless, as soon as that article came out, I think it's a nothing burger. But Nebius dropped from 275 to 250. And so now it's, consolidating probably around this 250 range. Maybe it bounces today, but if it doesn't, it's up from 180. If you're heavy in Nebius, you've got to just be happy that all those gains that were eviscerated in a couple weeks have pretty much just come right back. And it's very exciting to see that momentum. But the neoclouds are taking a little bit of a breather, which is not that big of a deal. Your large cap semis have started to perform as well. NVIDIA 225.97 in the pre-market. I think a run to 230 is not crazy today, given the large cap memory names are running. It's just a question of how much appetite the street has for NVIDIA. TSM right there, that's up on the day, 430. TSM went from 480 to 350. It's back to 430. Broadcom went from 490 to 350. It's back at 420. So a lot of the large cap semiconductor complex had really good earnings. The market sold it off because of the Leopold situation, and now those companies are back, which is good, right? We want to see those names get love and be respected for their earnings. Intel as well fell to 89, now at 105. DRAM fell to like 47. Now it's at 58 in the pre-market as the memory names are running. And so you're seeing that momentum come back, which is important because, yeah, they probably didn't deserve to be at all-time highs, but
at the speed at which they got there. But now when they get back there, there's going to be a lot more fundamentals that are supporting it, which should be a good thing. SK Hynix as well. The chairman of SK Hynix did an interview, and we'll talk about some of the stuff he said, but that stock is well up 2%. This thing fell to basically 125, and now it's back up to 170, which is where it was like back in the IPO print, right? On the IPO print, it basically came to 170. So you're seeing it. You're seeing that momentum, and that is pretty strong. The reason the drone stocks are up in the pre-market, Red Cat right there up 11%, Ondas is up 5%, even after it fell 10% yesterday, is because Trump signed a proclamation to strengthen U.S. supply chains for drones. I think the drone trade is something that probably needs to be taken a bit more seriously. Many of these stocks, Kratos, AeroVironment, Ondas, Red Cat, the fundamentals aren't incredible. Let's just be honest about that. But the stocks are down from like 40 to 50% from their all-time highs. I think Ondas got to like 15 at the all-time high. Now it's at like 9. It got to 6 at one point. And you've got a Trump administration for the next 2 years that's going to support it. Whatever administration after Trump is going to have to support drones as well, because they're the future of warfare. And you've got new tariff executive orders to make sure that the supply chain of drones are going to be done in a more strategic way for the United States, with a $1.5 trillion PDYN. Yup, that's another one. UMAC, that's another one, up 18%. The $1.5 trillion budget is just going to have a lot of capital for those companies. The problem here is dilution from those names. The problem here is profitability from those names. Like, there's your typical small cap problem on a lot of those companies, but the thematic, I think, makes a lot of sense. And you just have to be ready for those companies to dilute and kind of deal with the financial engineering that they have to do until they get to the stage where they're seeing massive purchase orders. Also, there's a level of commoditization to drones. So really what makes the difference is software and other business applications and business use cases for drones, and businesses that those companies can acquire to amalgamate them to be more of a consortium of defense applications, which is what I honestly think Ondas is doing with all the different acquisitions. I know a lot of people, blame them for all these different things they're going after, but I think they're doing that because they don't just want to be a drone maker. They want to be a platform that enables drones to grow in the future and see the different applications that can arise from a defense perspective over the next 10 years. So a lot of these companies are small. They're not 30, 40, $50 billion companies. And it looks like the Trump administration is at least on their side in order to keep that momentum continuing to go. So that is what we have right there with some of the drone stocks. And that's why they're up in the pre-market. AEHR, they got another purchase order 2 days ago. The photonics trade has started to come back. I mean, it's not exploded. Lumentum and Coherent had really good earnings, but just like not the types of earnings that could get these stocks back to all-time highs. So they're not there yet. Coherent's all-time high, wasn't that like 500 or something? It was 440. Okay, so it's at 331. It was down 8% yesterday after their earnings. But Jose was on. I think he gave a really good description and explanation of optics yesterday on the Market Open. And from his perspective, this is an industry that's continuing to grow. It's another bottleneck. It's just, once again, with the bottleneck, they have to keep that earnings growth. And these earnings were good. They just weren't unbelievable. Same thing with SanDisk, which is why, the market didn't appreciate them. But SanDisk took a 15% dip, and now it's up 30% from those lows a couple of days ago. So I think that could be the exact same thing for a lot of photonics names, which is what happened to AEHR. It fell to like $40, and now it's at like 130 based on more purchase orders and sentiment on optics changing. Here is what the SK Hynix chairman said yesterday on the cyclical nature of memory and if this cycle is different for AI.
Huge site that we've seen is going to be sustainable and last in something that's traditionally been a boom and bust cycle. Why is this time? Is it going to stay?
I told you that the demand side, but what I really believe in the future is, in the past cycle of the memory business is depends on the number of the people, because the number of the hardware set. So without the hardware set, actually, you're not really consuming that the smartphone one at a time. So you're not going to buy that the tens of the smartphone someday. So, but yeah, the number of people is kind of limited, bounded by that the whole market. But AI era, I think, is a different, and you might have that 10 different your AI agent and help you. So that all that agent has that is needed more memories. So those kind of expansions. So I don't want to say that there is no cycle. But I want to say that the cycle movement has to change. So it's a much longer cycle. I'm not really sure, because that nobody really see that the whole features, but I feel that this is not a normal things and what we used to be in the memory business. So this is a kind of turning point for us as what I see that some structural change. So that's.
So basically, his argument is agentic inference is going to create a structural change for the level of demand that's needed when it comes to AI. And obviously, it's not a new argument. We've heard this over and over again. I think the street, to really get the memory needs back to all-time highs is trying to understand at a deeper level what is beyond the structural change that's happening with agents, because we know agents are going to create this massive level of inference and massive level of demand for memory. But is there more than just agents? And quite frankly, agents are enough. I mean, as I've been using the LLMs even more and more, I've like gone back to them and asked them a question about something I said like weeks ago. And ChatGPT will literally tell you, updating my memory, recalling questions that you mentioned weeks ago. And it's like, it really needs that HBM to give the context that's necessary to keep having a conversation in a meaningful way by understanding what I asked before. And I imagine as the enterprise grows and adopts AI, the level of context windows are going to have to increase like exponentially, which means you're going to need more memory. It's just those dynamics of what else is there besides agentic inference to continue that memory demand. That's always going to be the kind of cloud that's hanging over the memory stocks, which is why their PEs are as low as they are, in the moment. But over time, I think as we get more innovations with AI, that's where things can change in a different perspective. Tesla, we got a headline right here. Oh my, that's why you're seeing a little Tesla pump. The information: Tesla plans new Roadster unveiling with a flying stunt as early as this month. Elon did say, what was this, at the end of 2024, that there was going to be a flying car presentation that never ended up happening. He tweeted about this. No, this was 2025, November. This was last year. Elon said, quote, I have the tweet right here: "We're getting close to demonstrating the prototype. This product demo will be unforgettable. My friend Peter Thiel once reflected that the future was supposed to have flying cars. We don't have flying cars. I think if Peter wants a flying car, we should be able to buy one." Yeah, that demo didn't end up happening. Yeah, that was also on Joe Rogan. I mean, dude, that would be kind of fun. A flying Tesla Roadster. Yeah, they can compete with Archer now. It's an eVTOL. Okay, there's no way it's going to be available to buy. I mean, we're not at the point where governments have been able to regulate or even think of regulating what flying cars would look like or what air traffic would look like for vehicles. But yeah, it'd be pretty cool. It'd be exciting for a stock that really hasn't had too much excitement this year. SpaceX as well had a great week. That stock was up about 15%, 143 right here in the pre-market, up 1.5. The Jensen $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure, I think, got a lot of the street to once again be excited about the overall opportunity for SpaceX to get to like $200-300 billion in ARR just off the compute business, and then Starlink's a cherry on top, and then boom, that's how you justify a $2 trillion market cap right now. But that's kind of the only reason. It's not Starlink. It's really that NeoCloud business. And Elon's executing pretty well on that. Tesla right there up 2% on this potential Roadster event that we might see by the end of the month. SanDisk again up in the pre-market based on your memory investor day and some of the upgrades, up 7% right there. 1640, Broadcom, DRAM, SK Hynix, NVIDIA, TSM, all of them getting some love as well. Archer had a good week. They had a great earnings. They announced some acquisitions. So did Joby. So the eVTOL revolution seems to at least be getting a little bit more momentum. And if they can show some actual test flights and get these things into cities, I think there would be a lot more excitement. Archer right there, that was up 10% yesterday, up about 0.5% in the pre-market. Okay, so that's what we have with memory. This was an announcement from NVIDIA. NVIDIA and LG are expanding their collaboration. This came out yesterday. Building on years of work together, NVIDIA and LG Group are joining efforts to across AI factories, robotics, and autonomous vehicles, combining LG's leadership in product engineering and manufacturing with NVIDIA's AI infrastructure. These are the announcements I want to see out of NVIDIA because they're announcements that are more rooted in physical AI. And the more stuff we see with physical AI, the more progress and potential we see for different elements of this revolution to be a lot more exciting. outside of just chatbots. And so I think Jensen also has started to talk more about robots for this reason, and he knows like that this is the next S curve, and hopefully that S curve continues to get some more momentum. I know Bitcoin's down right here in the pre-market, but if you take a look at the futures open interest, it has started to rally a lot more. And so you're seeing in the last 8 hours, $1.2 billion of came for Bitcoin futures open interest, which is quite frankly orders of magnitude higher than we've had over the past couple of weeks. I don't know if that's a signal. I don't know if that means anything. I know Bitcoin's down right here in the pre-market. I think it's going to need a rate cut to at least get some more excitement into IBIT and BTC. But who knows, man? Maybe if we're really starting to see the bull market develop, you're not going to have one of the largest assets of a traditional bull market like Bitcoin be stuck. 62,000 right here, down about 1%. It was at 65,000 in the pre-market. Tesla's still up a little bit right there. About 1.2%. Wow, 346. I mean, you know, I think the street's just excited about a catalyst because I don't think you'll be able to buy a flying roadster. But anything that Tesla shows that's new, because they haven't really introduced a new car in a long time, and they kind of are stopping production for their old models to focus on Optimus, that could reinvigorate some excitement for Tesla. I am going to be doing some research with AppLovin. I'm going to be calling some people over the weekend to talk about AppLovin and see if there's an opportunity here. I think there's an opportunity. I will try to get a decent chunk of DD over the weekend. We'll talk about it on Monday. If there is, maybe this is the next SaaS name to go higher. Now, why is SaaS going higher? Let's talk about that. Workday got an acquisition offer yesterday from Silver Lake. Silver Lake is a $100 billion private equity firm. And as a result of that, the market kind of woke up and said, okay, if Silver Lake, which is private equity that has not been touching software stocks, in fact, they've been down on their private SaaS valuations, if they're ready to get excited about software again, then for everyone who's been buying software over the past couple months in the face of semis ripping higher, which was not an easy thing to do, buying Reddit at 130 or buying Shopify at 97 or Palantir at 107, ServiceNow at 80, like all those names are up materially from those levels. And now you have the private markets agreeing probably that Claude's not going to vibe code all these companies, which means if they're not going to vibe code these companies, our SaaS valuations that we thought were discounted to the point where, you know, we had to mark them down by 40, 50, 60% privately, which affected the public market valuations. We don't need to do that anymore. And that's why at around 3 p.m., once this offer came out, every single SaaS name just started flying because the market was like, okay, we were wrong. Like, I think the market is admitting we were freaking wrong. We didn't need to sell these SaaS names off to the egregious levels we sold them off to. They don't need to get back to the highs they were at 3 years ago because, you know, those levels were probably unwarranted for the level of growth they're showing right now. But they definitely did not need to get to like bankruptcy levels for companies that are doing, you know, tens of billions in free cash flow, and that obviously are benefiting from the orchestration and governance of tokens that are only going to exponentially increase as token costs go down, which means the models once again lack a little bit of that mode. And then Reddit got into the S&P 500, which makes sense. Reddit's a highly profitable company. The street took it down to $130 on 178% EPS growth. Probably did not deserve to get to that level, and so that's why you're seeing it get some more love. Then you had Mr. Microsoft, which is still below 500, but that one also made a massive rally from the 350s. This one's also primarily a software company along with AI infrastructure. And that one also got some love, which is why you're seeing this excitement. Path also had a crazy month. That is correct. So you're seeing software and semis participate, which means, you know, you don't have to be as picky anymore about a sector to be in just to have some performance. It's more so about the companies you pick in that sector, which is how it should be, right? It shouldn't be one sector completely written off. But the fact that one sector was written off for like 5 months created some amazing opportunities. And that's why I think the market is giving this here a lot more excitement. Oracle is up as well because we've got some updates on OpenAI. So it's kind of weird what's going on with OpenAI. They came out yesterday and basically said they're on a $40 billion annual run rate, which is up from $25 billion a few months ago. Revenue grew 20% month over month, driven by strength in Codex. But then their chief revenue officer and chief operating officer left. The chief revenue officer left after only being there for 9 months. Yeah, Viva Systems, massive rally, Snowflake, Datadog, all those companies, you know, had a pretty big move in the software space. So the Oracle thing, the OpenAI thing is interesting because, I mean, the reason I think it rallied yesterday is because of the software names. It's down about here, 0.5% of the pre-market, but if OpenAI continues to grow at this level, which is not Anthropic level growth, but it is still decent growth, the proxies should do well, Microsoft, Oracle, etc. But then you have like the chief revenue officer leaving after 8 months, and you just wonder why, right? Like, why are these people leaving one of the fastest growing, most important startups on the planet in the age of AI Like, it's just not making sense, right? And this is like the 5th executive to leave this month. You had a couple other executives leave. I mean, I don't think any of the founding team is there anymore outside of Sam Altman. So it's one of those things that always makes you question, like, what exactly is going on right there? But as long as they continue to grow those numbers, the proxy is like an Oracle, which, you know, has a lot of their RPO, should continue to do well. The SanDisk CEO is on CNBC Live right here. Let's see what he has to say. And then we'll get into some of the other macro stuff we have right now.
Big debate right now. And that cyclicality, in my opinion, is a product of the business model. On the supply side, we make decisions and investments 10 years out, 15 years out. We spend billions of dollars building fabs, and then we lock in a production plan for, let's say, the next 3, 4, 5 years. Traditionally, on the demand side, you know, the demand side shows up every quarter, and we have spectacular customers, the best companies in the world. But we really would negotiate price every quarter. So that would lead to this enormous volatility in the business. You have the demand, you have the supply side investing and making decisions a decade out. You really have the supply side together with, or the demand side together with us, negotiating the price of that product every quarter. So that leads to just enormous volatility. That's what we're changing by asking the demand side for more visibility, and we're getting it.
So if you have visibility going out, say, 4 years, I think I heard that number.
That's right.
Versus months, what does that do to the supply side? Does it change how you're planning for the future, or does that stay the same?
Of course. I mean, we're kind of walking down a path that gives ourselves more visibility to make those long-term investments. And as we get more confidence in the future, of course, we can make better decisions today. And we can get out of this world where somebody on one side of it is always in some kind of distress. If you go back to 23, all of the memory players were just bleeding money all over the place. The industry lost tens of billions of dollars. Here we are 3 years later, and it's like, we don't have enough. And so nobody wins. I don't see how anybody wins in the way things are organized today. So if we can converge those time horizons, I think everything is just going to work a lot better.
But are you arguing that the cycles are done? We're done with cycles and semis?
No, I mean, I think we got to be, you know, a little bit pragmatic. There's cycles in everything. There's a business cycle. The economy has a cycle. I think what we need to do is just dampen this cyclicality, and it's not just wild roller coaster. And, you know, there's going to be some set of cycles, but the way we deal with them will be different, right? We won't be in this like back to the wall. We need to sell our product. We need to turn cash into inventory so we can make payroll and pay down debt. It'll be we can adjust supply as we go to kind of keep things in line. And I think that the business will just be a lot more predictable. And that's really what we explained yesterday.
Yeah.
I think people understood the
They seem
story.
to get the message, but I do wonder. I mean, you're going to hold more inventory back for these long-term agreements. Is that?
Yeah.
Would that actually be that then you're selling less product next year in a way?
Oh, well, so look, the business is just going through a massive transformation. So our business was set up for maximum flexibility. If you don't know what you're going to ship until you're in the quarter, you set up the system for maximum flexibility. Now we're in a world, we know exactly what our customers are going to buy for the next 4 years. They've given us month by month, quarter by quarter demand. So now we have to change the system for more predictability. So we're hold more finished goods, allow us to meet the commitments in a more predictable way. That transition is going to take, we're in that transition now. It's sometimes confusing. And I think by the time we get to 27, 28, 29, you're going to see a very, very different business. And that's what we painted yesterday.
But are you saying rather than negotiate price every quarter, you're now negotiating every 4 years? I mean, it's stretched out that much?
Well, look, we're taking lessons from other markets. It's like we talk to our customers, we meet with our customers with where they are. So in the data center, our customers came to us and says, they qualified our products. You know, we have great products, and they say, okay, I have your product now. I'm going to deploy it in my data center. Here's my demand forecast for the next 4 years. And we basically told them, look, if you want to negotiate that every quarter and think you're going to get everything you're going to get, that is a lot. You're going to have a lot of variability in your business. And they said, we don't want that. We want predictability. So some agreements are 1 year, some are 2 years, some are 3 years, some are 5 years. And so we put together a portfolio of agreements that the average duration is 4 years, and it covers half of our supply in this fiscal year. Next year, 2/3. So we're walking down this path of having more predictability, and those agreements have pricing, right? There's pricing structure within that. So it gives us certainty of economics, and that's what we told the street yesterday. And I think it's a great story, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's sort of
Notice that, this guy's job and all the memory CEO's job is just communication around cyclicality. I mean, that's it. That's all people care about. Like, none of the software companies have to communicate about cyclicality because, their business models theoretically don't have boom and bust cycles. They should be sustainable. They have to communicate about how they're going to use AI to increase margins, all this stuff. But the memory guys and really all the semiconductor CEOs, even Jensen for a while before it became obvious kind of what was happening with NVIDIA GPUs. AMD, I don't have a headline right there, but that's up 1.5%. You have to communicate why it's going to last, why someone should invest today to be able to get a higher price they can sell at in a couple of years. And I think the SanDisk CEO, quite frankly, out of all the CEOs, has done the best job because we all listened to the earnings call for those that were there on the market close last week. And on the investor day, from what I read, and just now of him explaining, look, this is what we're going to do. This is why we think the stock should have a premium. And this is why we think the memory story is not going away anytime soon. Now, there are external variables like long-term agreements being canceled, like prices peaking and them having to dramatically decrease their margins, even if they say they have a price floor that they can't live up to, or massive supply coming online that could change that story. But those risks have to be counteracted with the potential positives of AI innovation leading to just so much more demand that the memory names continue to be the bottleneck. And from that perspective, I think that's why the stock's up 7% and it was up 13% yesterday, up 20% in the past 2 days, which is pretty incredible. Yeah, I don't see any AMD headline here, folks. Getting a nice little 1% pop. They are doing $5 billion of debt. That was announced a couple days ago. Street absorbed that news, didn't care too much. But AMD, nice recovery as well after earnings fell 10% and another 4% on AMD, and it'll basically be back to where it was on earnings. ARM right there, that's up 1%. Oh, Gavin Baker bought a new stock. So we're starting to get more 13Fs that have been released. Gavin Baker, he bought Zoom. I think Zoom has a very early stake in Anthropic. Gavin Baker has been like the biggest Anthropic bull that's out there. The fact that he bought Zoom last quarter just means he wants even more exposure than his private stake, which is incredible because maybe if Anthropic does go public at $3 trillion, which we're going to talk about Anthropic in a second because some interesting stuff came out last night, Zoom would be a catalyst. And then he bought VST. So he bought Vistra and he bought Zoom. And I think, the Vistra acquisition here from a stock perspective is it's energy, right? Gavin Baker has continuously said the bottleneck to AI is energy. And VST, VRT, a lot of these companies that are in the broader energy space to build out data centers, if we're going to need more of that, that could be a really simple theme going into 2027. So VST also, I was looking at some of the fundamentals this morning. I'm going to look at it more over the weekend. It's $50 billion market cap. It's actually down 11% year to date. It's down 27% over the past year. So it's not one of those semiconductor names or electricity, power, energy names that's had this 300-400% run. And if their demand, similar to GE Vernova, is not slowing down anytime soon and they haven't really made the run, that's a company that, from an earnings perspective, trades at 14 times forward. Maybe not the scariest thing to take a bet on. So those are some of the new names that he bought as well. Okay, Anthropic. So Anthropic, they're expected to grow at 120 billion ARR, expected to go public at $3 trillion. Wall Street Journal did a piece on Dario yesterday. It's literally front page of the Wall Street Journal. And look, it's one of those things where it's just a little interesting, to say the least. I don't know if it really affects the Anthropic thesis. It probably doesn't. But let me ask you guys this. Did you guys know Dario was married at all? Because we never tend to hear about his wife or his marriage, and we don't need to, quite frankly. But, I've never heard of it until last night's article. Wall Street Journal did a full piece on it because of the influence she has at Anthropic. It's kind of crazy. She used to date Eric Schmidt, who was the former CEO of Google. She ended up then breaking up with him and going with Dario. And Eric Schmidt is the one that introduced her to the Anthropic opportunity. The part that gets really weird is that she in 2012 reached out to Jeffrey Epstein to get an investment. And that investment was for, quote, a new revolutionary porn company. I cannot make this up. These are the emails that they found between her and Epstein. And so it's just a little weird. And, it's front page of the Wall Street Journal right now that, one of the most important CEOs on the planet has a wife that has connections to Jeffrey Epstein, who is trying to get an investment for a, again, quote, revolutionary porn company. I don't know what that means. And Epstein ultimately didn't end up investing, but it's just one of those things, bro, where it's like a little weird. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because as Anthropic gets ready to go public, this is part of the thing about being a public figure, you're going to have a lot of things start to come out about Dario in particular. I mean, people are not going to give this guy hundreds of billions of dollars without knowing every last detail about him. And as much as he tries to be quiet about his private life, even the Wall Street Journal did some investigating. Like, if you ask Claude, is he married? Claude won't say a yes or no. Like, it's one of those things where like he's really made a solid attempt for people to not know about that part of his life. And no one needs to know. But then again, if you're going to be a public CEO, part of being public is people knowing about your life, and you bring the Epstein angle in it. It's one of those things that gets interesting. So from that perspective, I wonder how that's going to affect the IPO. I wonder what his responses are going to be for that stuff. I mean, these are the things, if you're running to be a politician as well, this is stuff that people care about. Nubank up 12% on a double beat on their earnings, 50% revenue growth. And quite frankly, I also wonder what it's going to mean for Anthropic to exist as a public company and how much people care about all the different nuances outside of just their revenue growth. Their CapEx commitment is the big thing, but also who is Dario? Who are we investing in, right? At the end of the day, if that company IPOs at 2.5-3 trillion, he will be responsible for that capital, stewarding that capital, and making sure that capital continues to grow in one of the greatest build-outs we've ever seen. So I think a lot of these details are going to come out. Obviously, the S1 is going to be the most important thing as we see more and more numbers. But yeah, that piece in the journal yesterday was crazy. I was looking at these emails. I could not believe that there was these types of connections there. But that's what you had for Anthropic. PayPal right there, that's up a little bit. Uber's up 2%. Again, Ackman's in Netflix. That's why Netflix is getting a little bit of a pop this week, 78.60, as that continues to go green. I think the big thing for today, we are going to see, can we hold the momentum of this week? Can we keep it going into the weekend? Do we have any oil updates in regards to Iran? I mean, everything that we heard this week was good in terms of both sides at least wanting to somewhat get to a deal. Oil is down a little bit for the week, not in the 70s yet, but hopefully we get there. On top of that, stocks have run a lot this week, software and semis, even some of the hyperscalers. Can they hold it? Because if they give some of it back on a Friday where you've got options expiring, Palantir was like 10 cents away from 180 yesterday. Let's see if we can break through when the market opens. Then it is what it is. You're going to have to give back some of the gains, but overall, it's been a really good week. And unless we go fully red for the week or for the day, 2%, 3% down the S&P, which I think is unlikely, then it should be one of the best weeks we've had all year. S&P is going to end like 4% up this week, which is quite incredible. So that's what we got. Thank you all for being here. It is Friday, August 14th, as Broadcom dumps right at the open. Let's see what's going on. 9:30 a.m. The stock market on this Friday morning is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. I don't know what just happened to Broadcom. Literally 20 seconds before the open. Got a dump right here, 420 to 408. We'll see if there's a headline right there, if there's something more serious. Oracle, that is up a little bit. AMD, that's up 1.5%. AMD getting some of that love. Tesla on that new Roadster potential flying demo. From the information that was put out this morning showing next month. Maybe that is something the street is excited about. SpaceX, that's up 3%. Lumentum, that's up 2.4%. Air Test Systems, all-time highs at 12% up on the day. SK Hynix, that's up 2%. DRAM, that's up 2%. Nebius, look at that, right from 252 to 263. What a massive move as we get into the open. Palantir opens slightly down at 178.94, just below 179. ARM, that's up 0.5%. AbCellera has been an amazing name this week after their positive drug results, even with the dilution, $11. That's up 1.28% as that continues to go green. Kava, that's up 2%. T1 Energy, that's up 1.8%. Applied Optoelectronics, that's up 2.64%. You're seeing some of those photonic small cap names start to get a bit more excitement. Palantir trying to go for 180. Oh no, we did. We touched it. Did anyone see that? We touched it literally for a second and then we dropped to 178. So we got through 180, which means I think we have a chance to get right back there. It's been 7 months since we've seen that 180 level. NVIDIA, 226, as that continues to go green. Oh, Burry closed his semiconductor shorts yesterday. for a loss, and he opened up new shorts on the QQQ for June 2027. So he closed his January 2027 semiconductor puts for a loss, and he rolled those for a June 2027 QQQ puts. So yeah, he definitely admitted at least defeat technically on some of those puts, but he opened up, in his words, an even larger position on QQQ puts. DRAM, that's up 1%. He kept the Nebula short, kept the Oracle short. He added to the Micron short yesterday, kept the NVIDIA puts, and then kept the Palantir puts. So he continues to remain short with puts on a variety of those names. Zoom is down about 1%. Palantir again, she's trying for 180, which I think she touched again. Yeah, 180.18. 2 times today, she touched it and got rejected. Let's see if we can actually break above, which seems very likely that there's a shot to get there. AppLovin, that's up 2%. NVIDIA does indeed want 230. Let me check resistance there, but every dollar on NVIDIA is $25 billion in market cap. So every dollar matters a lot. 227 on NVIDIA for the first time, basically in a month and a half. I think we touched it yesterday for like a few seconds. Looks like now it's actually trying to hold above it. SanDisk up 4, Archer up 3, SpaceX up 1. I don't know what's happening with Broadcom. That was kind of weird right at the open. Maybe it was just people taking profits. Even Netflix and Robinhood getting a little bit of a dump as well. So you might just have had people at the open take some profits right there on that green momentum from the pre-market. Nebius, just an unbelievable stock with price action, dude. 254 to 265 right into the open. I mean, it's a couple bucks away from where it was yesterday, up 5% right there as this one continues to outperform and really came from the bottom at 140 a couple weeks ago after the liquidation event. Cerebras, that's down 1.4%. Lunar, that's up 11%. Rocket Lab, which was almost below 80 in the pre-market, 81.92 as that goes green. Reddit should be up as well. Reddit is up. I think Reddit might also hit 180 right here, 13%. Again, if you were in this name, S&P 500, it makes sense. They took out some other company from the S&P, and I don't even remember the name, but you hear the name of some of these companies and you're like, yeah, that should have been in the S&P. Like when you look at the earnings growth, I mean, people who are buying the S&P want something that's going to grow, right? Like Reddit's growing. Like you need stuff that's growing, profitable, has good margins, is sustainable. There you go, 180 on Reddit, and it looks like that's what's happening right here. AMD losing a little bit of the pump that it did get right before the market opened. Google at 349, Meta back to 600, DraftKings 2593 as that is up 2%. Nebius to 270 as NVIDIA is going for 228. All right, so either this is a market open pump on some of these names, and you're going to see this kind of get faded, or there's like real momentum here. I think it's hard to tell. Yesterday, it was obviously faded by around 11 o'clock. So I think it's going to take about an hour to see if we can hold on to this. But as of now, that momentum's pretty damn high. Rocket Lab, 80.75. Reddit, 180.30. NVIDIA, 227. Nebius, 268. Netflix is down a little bit. Palantir not really breaking above that 180 level. The Qs, they are flat on the day. You got a big red candle at the open. Micron's also losing a decent chunk of premium. Micron went from 990 to 958. The drone stocks are up today because Trump is basically putting an executive order on making the supply chain for the drones to be much more friendlier via tariffs. And that's why you're seeing the UMAX, the Red Cats, the Ondas's get some love right here. Reddit, wow, 181. This stock was chilling in the 250s last year for a while. So it is still far, but now I didn't deserve to be there. Like the growth wasn't there yet, but now the growth is there. And, you know, it's not dirt cheap anymore, but if you put a regular growth premium on it, it probably gets you back into the 200s, and S&P funds always help to get some of that momentum. VST, that's up 2%. Oracle, that's down 1.3. Microsoft, 496. Chris Hohn's 13F is out. He earned a record $18.9 billion of profits in 2025. Their Q2 13F. Hopefully we get more of these 13Fs during the market open and we can break them down live. His top 5 positions: GE, Visa, Moody's, S&P Global, and CP. Canadian Pacific, Kansas Limited. His top 5 buys in Q2: MLM, VMC, S&P Global, FER, and Google. A lot of the big guys buying Googs, 350. A lot of the big guys buying Googs. And his top sales were SP, NI, GE, even though it's still his top position, and Microsoft. That'll be interesting to see how many people actually sold Microsoft to buy more Google. But, we're seeing more and more of these companies end up getting there. Canadian Pacific, right there, 94.26, and you're seeing, the sort of swap that some of these people are having in terms of how they think of Google versus Microsoft. IREN, that's up 0.5% as well as this continues to go green. SMCI is at 40. It was at 42 yesterday. Broadcom, I do not see what is happening here for it to go down 3%. Microsoft has outperformed Google since then. That is fair. Yeah, if he sold in Q2, he had to sell Microsoft either right above 400 or below 400. If he bought Google, he probably bought Google at the same price. So quite frankly, the people that sold Google and bought Microsoft, like Bill Ackman, are the ones that actually got the outperformance in Q2. AV was up 11%. Now it's down 2%. Yeah, or it's up only 2%. Again, the drone stocks have a big momentum catalyst today, but if that momentum fades, then, once again, the reason these stocks have kind of done bad all year is because the fundamentals aren't amazing. But the momentum catalysts are there. They're in the right thematic. If you're going to buy them, you just got to hope you have more and more momentum catalysts as they continue to compound earnings. But they are not the stocks in the market that are aggressively growing earnings yet. Those would still be the semiconductor names that have started to get a little bit of love. NVIDIA's pump faded. Palantir's pump faded. I know it's only been 8 minutes, but some of that momentum dying down a little bit. How about Nubank? Nubank still holding on to 14%. This one deserves it. It is a Friday. It is indeed a Friday. There's always weird options activity on a Friday, especially after a massive week. So I think the buys here probably should be more conservative in terms of price action. But S&P just went red. Even if we were to go red today, the level of gains over the past week have been pretty incredible. Adobe, that goes down 2.3. Intuit, that's down 2%. Your software names are now going red. Figma's down 2.5. Zeta, 29.52, down from 29.87. Not that big of a deal. The fact that it's above 29 is incredible. I mean, again, the stock was just stuck below 20 for so long. Same thing with ServiceNow. Like, you can't be too upset. Stuck at 80, 90, now at 124. But some of these names are giving back some of the love. Shopify also broke out yesterday to 157 as they had really good earnings last week, and that made a move. Bloom Energy, 235, as that continues to go down. USAR, they had a good earnings a couple days ago. Are the other rare earths running? MP is also running. So the rare earths having some love right here. I don't see a headline on the rare earths, but maybe you're seeing a little bit of rotation away from these other names. Micron, 963. SpaceX did flip red. 140.5. I mean, look, SpaceX from the lows is incredible. The problem is there is a lot of liquidity that still has to be unlocked on this name. But if Elon can get to a couple $100 billion in ARR in the next year and a half, I mean, yeah, I think the market's just going to keep giving it the premium. The question is how much of that liquidity is going to be used to also exit. And then what happens when the S&P actually does go down 5% to SpaceX, right? Like, if we do get a 5% drawdown, which, by the way, Tom Lee says we're going to 8,000 by the end of the month, and then we're going down 10%. And does anyone think that's going to happen? Like, are we going to hit 8,000 in August, like the end of August, and then drop 10% on the S&P from there? And the arguments he gave, I'm sorry, they just weren't that convincing. He was like, well, margin debt is high. I'm like, hold on, margin debt was really high in July, and we had a really ugly drop. That's over. He's like, the Fed's still going to be tested. I'm like, okay, but like, I don't know if the Fed's going to be tested to the point where we're just going to go down 10% because they want to test Kevin Warsh. Like, there still has to be a different catalyst to cause that. Earnings growth is fine. Like, I just, now, if it does happen, I think stocks will become incredibly cheap. You have a great opportunity, and look, it's easier for us to go down 10% from 8,000 than from here, because obviously if we run up a lot, we could have a drawdown, but that would make a very ugly September and October, folks. I mean, September and October are not going to be fun if we have to deal with a 10% drawdown on the S&P 500. I mean, Robinhood's going back to 80, potentially lower. Like, Meta's going to 550. Like, Google's going probably below 300 if the S&P falls through. I mean, it's just going to be ugly. Marvell, 221, that goes red. Corning, 161 as well. Nebula still going for 270. Yeah, 5% I could see. 5% is normal. 10% is like a full-on correction. Because at 5%, you're going to have people wanting to buy the dip. And the question is going to be, should they buy the dip or should they not? And the qualitative reason for why things are so bad will determine it. The reason we went down 10% in March is because after we were down 5%, people were like, this war is going to last forever. We can't buy the dip. And technically they were right. We had another 5%, but finally you got the ceasefire and then we rebounded, which kind of caused the pain to be over at the time. SpaceX losing 140 right there. What is going to be the catalyst this time? NVIDIA 226 as that continues to try to hold on to some of that love as well. I don't know why Broadcom's down, folks. It feels like a pod at one of these funds at 929 just dumped a decent chunk of their position right here. That wasn't retail that woke up and sold this thing down 40 billion. It had to be something institutional. But I didn't see a headline that caused that. Nebby is still going up in the face of a lot of these names flipping red. 271 on Mr. Nebesis. AMD is well above 490. 492. AAOI, are we up or down on this one? We were flat last time I checked. We are up 9%. Dude, this name has been weird. Like, you talk about intraday 25% rallies up and down is what's happened on this name every day this week. Like, you got a chance to buy it at 125 and sell it at 145 almost every day this week, up and down. So I wonder if this 9% is going to hold, because it's been faded literally every single day of this week. And they had a really good earnings, so I think they deserve to get a pump. But the question is, how much are the algos just controlling some of these photonics names that are continuing to go up and down? SMCI, $40, that's still holding that 2% move. Nokia's up a little bit. Intel, nicely holding 100, which is good to see. Cisco is not an interesting buy right now. Cisco, again, a lot of the easy money has been made in Cisco, and they're not growing. They're growing revenue at 18%. It's like, okay, that's good, but I don't think Cisco is the crazy dip buy. Having said that, we're in a networking super cycle, so it's not like Cisco is not going to be super important. It's already a $450 billion market cap. It's broken out of a 20-year base. So it's one of those things where it's like, is it really going to $1 trillion, right? If you're buying it at $400 billion, like, what are you buying it for? You got to be buying it for that $700-800 billion level. And do they have the earnings growth to actually get up there? I don't know. I feel like the memory names have a way easier path to grow and potentially get that 50% move from these levels. Ondas, that's up 4.6%. Red Cat still up 5% as well on the day. Oscar, your healthcare names have been a sleeper for the past couple of weeks. Oscar, there you go, 32.45, hit 36 on earnings, fell to 27. This one probably getting back some of the love, and you're seeing that happen right here. Someone just bought 1.7 million of Tesla calls. February 2027, strike 495. Dude, if Tesla gets back to 500 by 2027, that would be exciting. 2 million into those 495 calls on Mr. Tesla. We also get consumer sentiment in 15 minutes. That is definitely a market-moving catalyst on a Friday. SPY just flipped green again, so we'll see if that sentiment from consumers changes any sentiment around some of these stocks right here. That was me. Yeah, of course, that was you. There's going to be a day where I get one of these option alerts, and it's legit going to be one of you guys that did it, and it got alerted, and it'll actually be true and not a troll. 1.7 million into 495s, bro. I mean, that would be incredible. Elon did disclose yesterday he owns 6.4 billion shares of SpaceX, about 48% of the company, which is like 500% more than the actual shares available to trade right now. Or sorry, like 800% more than the shares available to trade on the market right now. So Elon owns a chunk of this, which is why he's basically a trillionaire. But his shares are not available to sell or not unlocked in the market right now. Tesla 348 as that continues to get green. I don't think he can sell until next year, like summer. So that's about a year that he has lockup. Same thing with Google. They have a year lockup before they can sell. Amazon is interesting, man. Like, Amazon does this every earnings. When they have a good earnings and they pump, they don't hold it. I mean, this is identical to what happened in Q1. They rallied up to 280 and then just slowly came down. Obviously, Bezos sold a ton at 280 as well. So, you have the Bezos sell wall that came. But it's one of those names that needs earnings to move. Like, you don't randomly get an Amazon up 4 or 5% day. You get that sometimes with, you get that a decent amount of times with Tesla. You get that all the time with NVIDIA. You get that a decent chunk with Google. Microsoft and Amazon, they usually need a catalyst. And I mean, look, it's up from the absolute lows in July. So it gave an opportunity, but it's not breaking that $300 level. It's up 17% for the year. So definitely outperforming the S&P. Over the past 1 year, it's up 14%. Past 5 years, it's up 60, which is underperforming the NASDAQ. But that $300 breakout hopefully will continue to help it do well. AEHR, what a massive move right here. Hit 147, now at 136. Small cap, $4 billion company. Was much smaller than $4 billion in January as optics demand continues to be strong. What do you think about Planet Labs? I do not have an opinion on this company. I really don't even know what they do, quite frankly. I've heard about them, but it would have to be this one also, though. There's like $3 like a year ago, right? Or 2 years ago. This one's been a massively performing stock in the space part of the market. But I've not looked into them as deeply. It's one of those things I have to do. AAOI up 10%, still moving, 143. Broadcom, are we going to go below 400 here? Dude, what's the headline? 3% down on Broadcom. That's a lot. This is a $2 trillion company. Oil's down, 80.94. AMAT, they had a good earnings, but again, the EPS beats weren't that good. You're seeing a rebound from 496 to 522, which is green. Earth observation company. Is that like geospatial intelligence? I feel like that's because they get compared to Black Sky, right? Which I know that's exactly what Black Sky does. Tesla's still moving on that headline from the information right there, as that's up 2.5%. Reddit, can we hold it? We are still holding it, 180. S&P welcomes Reddit. It's one of the catalysts for the year. I kind of don't know if Reddit's going to actually hold this gain, though, dude. It's still down 25% for the year, and this one's like AAOI. Like, it'll get a massive move, and then they'll just slowly come down. S&P is a really big catalyst, but we got to have the street actually for the next couple of weeks keep it at these levels, or else it's going back to like 150, 160, which at this point would be a buy. Like, now that you know it's going to the S&P. You know, Robinhood's at a lower price than what it was at when it got into the S&P. It's crazy, bro. Like, the S&P is a good short-term catalyst, but like a year later, it really doesn't matter. Like, at that point, okay, yeah, more people bought it, but like if the sentiment or narrative has flipped on the company or the earnings haven't done as well, I mean, it'll just get sold out from the same companies that bought it. Rocket Lab going red, 82 to 79 as that continues down. Let me check AMD 500 resistance. NVIDIA 230 resistance. We're a long ways away, but 230 resistance is 727,000 shares to get there. AMD, which is actually very close to 500, 32,000 shares. Not as much as Broadcom loses 400. Why? Why 4%? There, hold on. Liz got it. Cactus, you have anything on this one? Why is this? Is this the stock that was just picked on a Friday to go down? It's so funny, right? The market makers sometimes they they all call each other, right? I was watching this documentary where because sometimes they have to move blocks of orders that are so big, like you have to call each other, and it's kind of regulated how they talk to each other. That's why Bloomberg has their like chat terminal where you're like anonymously talking to people and use different codes to like say stuff. But what if like Morgan Stanley called Goldman Sachs and was like, dude, we know something about this Broadcom shit. We gotta get it off our book here. Japanese yields are up today as well. So is gold and silver. So we're seeing some of those yields go up. Same thing with the 10-year, 4.64. Like Leo, yeah, dude, 100%. They knew that Leo was in trouble and they could sniff it out. And they were like, all right, it's time to take him out. Yeah, 5% on Broadcom is not just like that's something where people know something. And now you have retail probably a little afraid, and they might be just selling here as well. Cactus says he doesn't see anything. Interesting. Someone just bought 1 million of puts, 335 on Broadcom. Oh yeah, October. That is interesting. $1 million of puts, 335 Broadcom, October 2nd. Did they like lose the Apple contract or something? interesting how the street's potentially front running that. Micron 975, that's getting a rebound. The memory name showing great strength. Great strength. SanDisk 1618 as that's up 7. AMD, there she is. It's like Broadcom's losing it and giving it all to AMD. 501 on Mr. AMD. I'll try to get the link for the documentary. It was a few months ago. I got to find it in my history. I think it was either on PBS or it was on one of these independent financial channels that I watch. It's actually some really good like finance documentary channels about just like a lot of. Oh, by the way, we're interviewing a quant on Basis Points. Hopefully tomorrow. We're just confirming the schedule. Yeah, let me actually text them and officially say it's confirmed. It was awesome. See you then. This guy ran a quant fund in London, and he's in New York. And if you have any questions, that let me know. DM me on X, because I have so many questions about, dude, how does this shit work? Like when we talk about quantitative algos and stuff, like how does it really work? And so we're gonna really pick his brain, and I think that'll be a fun episode. Robinhood down 2%. Reddit just keeps moving. That's up 15%. ServiceNow down 3%. Some of the software names getting hit. It is not Quantesla, but if she's ever in New York, I would love to have her on the chat. We could just do an hour on quantum and be like, all right, tell us where this thing is going. Is it Felix? You know about Felix the YouTuber? No, he's not a quant. But no, it's not Felix. This guy's gone like viral on YouTube many times. Like he's done a bunch of interviews and like he's got hundreds of thousands of views. So I had a meeting with him the other week, and the guy looks like he really knows his shit. So I think it'll be a fun discussion. Nubank, that's up 13. Microsoft flipping green. Is Beyond Meat up today? No, it's up 2%. Oh, they did a reverse split, right? Yeah. There's still volume that goes into Beyond Meat and a variety of those names. Airbnb 185 as that continues to go green. It is not Patrick Boyle. I don't think he's a quant, but that guy is amazing at analyzing stuff. He's very good at breaking down a lot of different things. SoFi 1839, that one is just below 19. What other headlines do we have today? Consumer sentiment we'll get in 5 minutes. There wasn't a ton happening pre-market. Trump's been kind of quiet this week. I mean, outside of like one tweet about Iran, he hasn't really said a lot. So you start to see like him and his influence around like the markets just not be as strong. Oh, Anduril introduced that they are building a new orbital spacecraft, which was really exciting. I think this is also part of the reason Rocket Lab was up in the pre-market. They have a partnership with Anduril. But they said, we bet our own money to rapidly design, build, test, and fly a fully integrated satellite. Last month, Anduril 216 reached orbit. Anduril, alongside a few core partners, went from clean sheet to orbit in less than 2 years. So everyone is going after space, especially with spacecrafts and satellites. And I think that's part of the reason they had that partnership with Rocket Lab, to be able to get those launches into space to be more successful. I don't know when they're going to go public, but when they do, that's going to be a $200-300 billion company. Right now, they're worth like 70 in the private markets. And that'll definitely be something that people are excited about. Accelera, that's down 3%, back below $11. SanDisk still holding up 6%. T1 Energy is up 10. I don't see a headline for them either. They had earnings a couple of days ago that were good. Street didn't react too much, but it looks like now it's reacting. Tesla, the headline on Tesla was Elon's introducing a Roadster event with a flying stunt by the end of this month. So that's what got Tesla moving initially. In the pre-market, 349. ServiceNow red. AMD again below 500. Workday, an acquisition offer is definitely a short-term catalyst, but if the acquisition is going to happen, that's what determines if this thing deserves to go up. So I can understand why it's down 5%, but it's still up 15% from the lows of yesterday. It's just 173 to 227 was all momentum. And now it's a question of, will they actually be acquired? But it helped a lot of the software sentiment. Broadcom trying to recover above 400, but still down 3.7% on the day. CoreWeave just fell 4%. This is one of the things with the neoclouds again. or not 4%, but down 4% from yesterday. It's one of the things where you have to, like, I think Jose said it best yesterday. He's like, there will be many more events of volatility with everything semiconductor based. I mean, if we get 10, 15% drawdowns on these guys, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If the S&P was down 10%, I mean, Corey Van Nevius are going to fall off a cliff. Like, it's hard for me to see the S&P going down 10%, but even if the S&P was down 3%, Corey Van Nevius are going to take 10, 15% drawdowns pretty easily. So it's one of those things where we're at this level where it's like, okay, market's at all-time highs. A lot of these names haven't fully recovered yet. If anything happens to the market from a macro perspective that takes a bit of a beating, you know, some of these other stocks are going to have to get hit. Or do we just grind up past 8,000? You know, like, it's like one of those things. Do we kind of consolidate here, make a next leg down because there's just not enough buyers to go up? Or do we just bust through 8,000? It's like, that's the new base. And if we do go down from 8,000, we're still down at a level that's really good for the year, given how up we are. Tesla 350 officially there. Touched it. Looks like people are buying the hype on that news. And then AAOI and Reddit are your big winners of the day. We'll get consumer sentiment in 3 minutes. AAOI 148. So this is where it got stopped on Monday. This is where it got rejected. If it breaks through 150, maybe it's blue skies. But this is, I think, almost exactly around that 148.50 range. The stock was a $250 stock in June. So still down from the highs. 147 here, up 13%. Anthropic is likely going public in October, which is why I think you're seeing a lot more media about Dario and articles about who he is and what he believes and what are his associations with, like we had in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. But likely October. That means we should get the S1 in a couple of weeks, to be honest. We should get the S1 literally latest end of August if they're trying to go public in October. And that's when we actually get to see how strong the durability of these numbers are. And, you know, really, what are they going to disclose? Are they going to disclose their customer concentration? Or are they going to disclose how much money they give to Google and Amazon? Like, how much of the RPO of those companies are them? How much discounts they get on cloud computing because they signed these long-term agreements? Like, there's a lot of stuff we got to dig into. And also what their roadmap is when the cost of token effectively becomes zero. Like, what is the roadmap for them to make money? Because eventually Jensen's goal is to get the cost of tokens to basically be zero. Because there's going to be a lot of other ways to monetize it than selling the token itself. Obviously, Jensen sells the thing that creates the token, which is at 75% gross margins, really profitable. But how will that same story plan out for Anthropic? App11 right there, that's up 4 on the day. Lumentum's up 7. That's getting a nice rebound for Lumentum as well. SR, thanks for the super chat. Mitt, you're a goat. Been watching you for almost 2 years. You made me a ton of money, and then I lost it all again, but I appreciate you. It happens. You make money, you lose money. It's the nature of the markets, right? It's the nature of the markets. But thank you for being here, man. I appreciate it. By the way, guys, there will not be a market close today. Again, I have family from India. So they're going to actually be coming to my apartment today after the market open in like a few hours. So there will not be a market close today. My mom is joking. She hasn't seen the apartment since September of last year. She thinks I don't clean this place. Like, she's like, when I step in there, I just know it's going to be a jungle. I'm like, Mom, like, I live on my own. Like, I clean my apartment. She's like, okay, we'll see. I was like, you really don't believe I keep this place clean? Like, you think I just live with like garbage all around me or something? Like, no, I like a clean place. Like, I don't like to be in a nasty, bad, like, I clean every week, every Friday. I like clean this place. She doesn't believe it. So, you know, honestly, after this market open, I got to clean up this jungle behind me because it is a mess, to be honest. I got to prove to her that a 28-year-old man can clean his apartment. But that's why there will not be a market close. All right, consumer sentiment. What do we got? What do we got? Let's see. 4.3 versus 4.2 on inflation expectations. S&P, let me pull it up right here. Let's see if the S&P liked it. 778, basically flat. 4.3 versus 4.2. Retail sales came in at negative 0.6 versus expectations of 0.1. Wow, retail sales went down heavily in the month of July. And then 51 versus 55. That's also a lot lower than expected. Interesting. Market's not reacting that badly. But let's pull up the print right here on sentiment.
Than the 55 expected. And yes, it's in expansion territory, but sequentially lower than 55.2. That would be the weakest since we were back under 50 in June when we were at 49.5. Now, if you look at the current conditions, very similar scenario. 51.8, we're expecting a number closer to 55. It follows 54.8. 51.8, also the lowest since June, when it was also in contraction territory below 50. Now, expectations, all three. This one's above 50. That is probably the only good news, that they are all expanding, but at 50.6, 50.6, that's about 5 points weaker than expected. Definitely sequentially lower than 55.4. And in a similar fashion, that would be the weakest. Well, not since June. We have to go back just a little bit farther, and we're going to go back to May when it was 44.1. The expectation indice was the only one in June that was.
This is interesting because all these companies are saying the consumer is fine. Pepsi, Starbucks, Nike, American Express, they're all saying the consumer is fine. So this is a little weird to get the print to be this red against expectations. S&P is basically flat. You're not seeing a massive red candle, but the aggregate consumer sentiment data is definitely going against what some of these public CEOs are saying about the consumer.
Above 50. Now let's look at the 1-year inflation rate. 4.2 expected, a smidge warmer at 4.3. 4.3 would be the warmest since 4.6 in June. Last month, of course, at 4.2 is unrevised. That was the smallest since March when it was 3.8%. And finally, the 5 to 10 year outlook, exactly as expected, 3.3. Same as the rear view mirror, 3.3. And that would mark the 5th month this year of a 3.3 reading. Now let's move to business inventory, shall we? This is a June number, expecting up 1/10, comes in unchanged. Last month, you ended up grabbing your 10th. It was revised from up 0.3 to up 0.4. If we look at what's going on in Fed fund probabilities for the September meeting, it's vacillating anywhere from slightly below to slightly above 30%. Many more eyes looking at Bank of Japan for its September meeting, which is looking like a lock for a rate increase. David, back to you.
Rick, I'm going to come back to you for a second just to get your take on that auction yesterday in the 30-year and just overall. I know you were speaking earlier on Squawk, I think, but I wanted to get your overall. We've started the show here, which is a rarity at 9 o'clock, talking about the bond market. We hardly ever do that.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what, David, there's so many more eyes focused on the non-benchmark 30-year, primarily because it's the highest yield on the curve at 5.25 right now. In the auction, well, we had 3s, 10s, and 30s. 3s and 10s weren't bad. The 30s were the weakest. And I think they're the weakest because there's a little bit of a fear there. The widening of the spreads, for example, between the rate of a 30-year versus 10-year, the rest of the curve. And
the 10-year did come in decent yesterday on the auction at 4.647. The 30-year, again, a bit more aggressive. Look, overall, that sentiment is definitely different from some of the public commentary we've been hearing, but I don't know if it affects anything that the market cares about. What the market cares about is Tesla now above 350 again, is CapEx. Once again, I think stocks are being judged on CapEx, not on the consumer. If the consumer breaks, that's not a good thing, but even if they do, the CapEx is not slowing down. Like, even if AI demand slows down, like let's say people aren't using ChatGPT as much, I think these companies are so convinced that AI is going to be there in the future that they're going to be spending regardless to be able to make sure that once AI demand comes back, you're going to have all this infrastructure that's necessary. One of the key advantages OpenAI has over Anthropic is compute. Like, OpenAI has a lot more compute than Anthropic, and people gave them a lot of shit 2 years ago for signing all these commitments, but now they actually have the capacity to execute on their compute goals, and compute is the ultimate bottleneck. So yeah, AI demand is not slowing, even if the consumer was slowing down. Like, a perfect example, if the consumer is slowing down, then advertising demand on Facebook would slow down because consumers are not buying as much, which means like overall AI growth related to Meta's ad business would slow down, right? So that would be the syllogism by which Meta stock would fall and the market would be concerned. But Meta would still keep investing because Zuckerberg's not going to stop because the consumer is having a little weakness. Zuckerberg's going to be like, no, we're going to achieve Meta superintelligence. Eventually, the consumer is not going to be weak again, and they're going to want a lot of these AI products, and we have to be ready and have enough infrastructure and compute to serve them. So I don't think it's going to be as relevant for the market. S&P 500 right there, 778, 72. That one flipping green again, flipped red for a very small moment. Meta is just below 600. Tesla really having a day. I mean, we haven't seen 350 in a couple weeks, and it's off of a headline that's not even like confirmed, but there's just so much appetite and excitement to buy Tessie again. Nebius, are we still above 270? Right back to 270, fell to 265 as that continues to go up. SanDisk, dude, another 9% day is kind of crazy. I traded SanDisk yesterday and I bought it at 1512 and then it went to 1500 and I was like, I'm an idiot. Of course I bought the top. It was already up 10%. Like, what am I doing? And then I just like sat there for 2 minutes and then it just exploded back up to 1515 and I sold because I was like, this is too much volatility. This is too much for me. And then I just watch it go up to 1570 over the next 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I just held it. But when the volatility is there, the volatility is there. 1665. I mean, 1700 is not that far away. That's a 20% move on this market cap in 2 days and a 65% move from the absolute lows that we had back in July. T1 Energy, that's up 10. It was absolute paper hands, because it went down like 3% in a minute. Like, it was like 30 seconds. I was like, I'm an idiot. Like, why would I buy this thing up 15%? But I was like, no, I'm buying into the momentum. The chart looks good, and then you get this nasty red candle. And I'm like, they're not gonna take me out from here. They're not gonna go down 10%. So I had to wait a couple minutes and then it rebounded. So I basically broke even. But then it just exploded, right? So you just have to have the appetite to live with that type of volatility. Yeah, it was $970 a week ago. I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Tesla trying to go for 351. Hollis, thank you for the super chat. Money towards a housekeeper for you. Guys, I actually I know I'm joking around, but I legit keep my apartment clean. Like, my sister had to come over 2 days ago because she had to stay overnight for some reason. And it was a clean apartment. She didn't believe it either, but I was like, see, like, it's pretty freaking clean. It's pretty freaking clean. Like, I don't like living in a cluttered mess. Now, I don't clean it every day, but like every Friday. Like, I've never had a cleaning lady here. Like, I clean it myself. Like, it's not that hard. But it was just so disrespectful. Like, my mom legit does not think like I clean my apartment. So now, granted, is it a little messy right now? Yeah, because it's the end of the week, so I got to clean it a little bit. But still, like, if you were to come to the apartment, it's a nice, clean place. NVIDIA 226 as that continues to go green as well. T1 Energy, that's up 8.7. Is that what your resident mice tell you? I've never seen a bug or anything in this apartment. And to be honest, sometimes I do leave food around and like it's like crumbs and stuff. But like, I've never seen any of that here, which it speaks to the location, I guess, not being infested with that stuff. Nebius just below 270. Okay, so consumer sentiment decent, not horrible. SanDisk still running. I wonder if this thing actually breaks 1700. See, this red candle right here, 1667 to 1642. That's basically what I dealt with yesterday. And then you just have to be patient, and it rebounded like crazy. So this is where we got to see how much the bulls get scared, or if it keeps going. Wow, Bloom. Well, when SanDisk runs, they all run. Bloom right there, 245. DRAM, Bloom. I mean, a lot of these names this week. As soon as you got a break above the 40-week on Kospi, everything was ready to go. Kospi was up 3% yesterday. Like, it's really nice to see that recovering in a pretty meaningful way. Microsoft just below 500. Okay, first of all, thank you for the super chat, but I do have a mop. I have one of those electric mops or whatever. What is it called, dude? It's like it's a steam mop. I don't know what it's called, but like the point is, I have a Dyson for the vacuum, and I have a steam mop, and every Friday we make sure this. Also, I have a lot of candles, so it always smells good. Like, it's a clean apartment, bro. I keep it clean. Palantir 177 down 1, could not break above 180 again. Amcor, again, they're selling their China business this week for $1.5 billion. Amcor right there, $59.99. Looks like that. Look, Jensen talked explicitly about packaging a couple days ago on the CNBC interview. So just the nature of what they do and the couple of people that compete with them in the United States is why they have a moat. The cyclicality of their business, once again, is why all the semis continue to feel like a little or get discounted, right? But Amcor did not deserve to go back to $40 in July. So a lot of these names are just recovering from those levels. Nebius 267, Meta 598. having candles doesn't mean you're a girl. Like, what are you talking about? Girls are not the only people that have candles. Smelling good is not gender specific. Now, vanilla chai candles might be a little feminine, but that doesn't mean candles are a girly thing. They're freaking candles. Like, you want the place smelling nice. ASTS 72. As that goes green. Yeah, let me check AAOI 150 resistance. My wife is big on candles. Now, look, are more girls big on it than guys? Yeah. But that doesn't mean they're just for girls. Wow. AAOI 150 breakout there. Didn't even have any resistance. The next real resistance I see on the book flow, I mean, it's not until 155 is 14,000 shares, which is not a lot. Like, there's nothing that has 50, 100,000 shares waiting to be sold. This one looks more like blue skies, folks, as long as the volume's there. This looks like blue skies. MP, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for staying ad free. Appreciate you, MK. Yeah, you guys will never have to deal with midstream ads because I get a little annoyed at those as well. I haven't had those on for 4 years, bro. So it's like, if I put them on, it would also be weird because, like, you guys would miss my elaborate musings about candles because of a candle ad that you might see, you know? So got to make sure you guys hear everything. Meta 598, S&P 778, Rocket Lab coming back to 8150. What's next? Are you going to play in the WNBA? You guys are ruthless, bro. You guys, you know, I think my future girlfriend will appreciate the candles, okay? Now, she might think I'm a little gay, but still, I think she will appreciate the candles. Air Test Systems still up 10% as that continues to move right here. Let's hear from Adam Parker, get his thoughts on this rally and kind of where he thinks a lot of this is going to go in the month of August.
To say it's different this time, you had to lightning bolts. You were told you're an idiot. It already is different. They were trading market cap company. Like, you're already wrong, right? So we know history doesn't work that same way. It's a consolidated industry. The supply looks constrained for a while, and the cycle will be kind of defined by how much supply goes on.
So then, what's a reasonable guess about peak multiples in semis?
It really varies what type of semi, but I think NVIDIA is different than Micron. NVIDIA likely lasts longer. The cycle erodes less rapidly. But why these are, you know, there was a concern in the previous report from Christina about maybe supply from China. I doubt that's going to be a problem in this cycle. You got to think about how hard it is to make these things. I mean, I think Taiwan Semi is a great example. They've been building a facility in Arizona for a while. It looks like 3 years from now they're going to make 40,000 wafers in Arizona. They make 3 million in Taiwan. Like, you just can't catch up to the point you can really destroy it that quickly. These things are hard to do. So I'm not that worried about that at the leading edge, and I think you'll end up with more earnings than people think for longer than they think, and that's I think the reason the thing will be worth much more.
What would disrupt that?
Well, ultimately, it'll be the inability of hyperscalers and others to borrow money to spend at the rate that they currently are spending at. It'll cause some decline. I don't think it'll be, look, one of the things I do is I analyze institutional equity portfolio managers' portfolios. I talk about risks. And I think that what's in the price is actually that the hyperscalers are going to be a little less successful than I think they will be. How about this? Maybe some of the smartest people in the world aren't idiots. Maybe they're spending it because the return's pretty good. Maybe these companies are going to separate more from others due to that spending, and it lasts a little bit longer than people think. And so if that's
Funny,
the case,
you didn't say it's demand for compute. You actually said it's inability to access capital, or at least at a price that makes sense.
Doesn't it feel to you like we're in the first or second inning?
It's an interesting
kind of started
time.
with Google's 80B.
And there's more
Oh, wait, so you are going back and looking at an old playbook.
Well, I think ultimately the part that ended the TMT bubble that's similar to this is if you can't borrow enough money to continue to spend, it'll cause some cap. The difference this time, of course, is the core businesses are so awesome from the hyperscalers, they can fund a lot of the CapEx themselves. So, ultimately, I think NVIDIA will be 10 trillion market cap or something like that at the end of this cycle, just because their earnings power is so high. And I think you just have to think about it more like a sector than a security, given that they're in so many parts of the market. So I think compute grows way above GDP. I think you want to own semis. And the way I would frame it to people is, look, nobody really knew what AI was until NVIDIA's first upward revision in May of 2023. We're 3 years, 3 months into that. It's probably a 10-year cycle, plus or minus 2 years. You want to sell stuff 4 years and 9 months before the end? I don't.
Right.
And so I'm framing it that way. And then I just have to own other things that aren't correlated to have a good
I was going to
risk
ask you,
management.
what does all of this do to your, you've been positive healthcare for a long time.
Yeah,
as a non
finally acts a little bit better. But I think, I think we were too early and wrong about this, but I think probably the number one sector that benefits from all the productivity is going to be healthcare, where you have so many, kind of low margin, high revenue businesses. And I think the whole point of all of this stuff is that we live longer, we're more productive while we're alive. So I like all these things.
The healthcare names have worked recently as well. Again, 2023, when AI was developing, I think a lot of people thought healthcare was going to be the main beneficiary, which it will be probably, but not, in 2023. Now, UNH, Oscar, Tempest, you're starting to see a lot more of those names. Molina get back to being seen as core beneficiaries. Bloom is up 3. SanDisk looks like so far, folks, we topped at 1667. It's going to need some buyers to come in right here to step up. $237 billion market cap. The indices are not really moving today. They're basically flat, like literally flat. Qs and SPY. SPY volume again continues to be, less than 4 million shares. I mean, it's just not a lot of action happening right now. So you're seeing these names turn relatively flat. I don't have the Broadcom headline, guys. I don't know. I really don't know. That's weird. This is not a company that goes up or down 5% easily. Last time it had a major move to the upside was the Apple announcement. Yeah, it's getting dumped here. 396 low of day it just hit. It rebounded from the low of day 20 minutes ago and got back up to the 400. Now it's right back down, which is a bit weird. Wingstop's up 8%. Is it? Do they have earnings? This stock, I remember me and Chris looked at it in 2023, and he was actually bullish on it. Wingstop had earnings July 29th. Why are they up today? Nothing. I don't see any headline. Interesting. You're seeing Broadcom down 5. We're selling off ASICs to buy chicken wings today. But Wingstop right there up 8%. $3 billion market cap here. Wingstop is pretty pricey, dude. It's good, but it's expensive. It's okay, these wings shouldn't cost this much. It's definitely one of the more expensive fast food joints that's out there. Wolf Research, AI financing highlights massive revenue opportunity, but long-term risk on Broadcom. Really, it's a sell side that's taking it down today? What could they have possibly said that has people worried about it? Wolf estimates Broadcom 14 gigawatts of planned OpenAI and Anthropic capacity in 2028 could represent $200 billion of revenue versus $245 billion of revenue. The key longer-term concern is Broadcom's $30 billion of residual value guarantees, which could become meaningful if the AI industry ultimately overbuilds capacity, although Wolf does not expect supply to exceed demand through 2028. Okay, it's going back to OpenAI and Anthropic, folks. This is why these companies are so important. Sell side comes out, says, we don't know if OpenAI and Anthropic are actually going to pay Broadcom the amount of money that they're supposed to pay them. Broadcom has a partnership not exclusively, but I guess technically it's exclusive with OpenAI for a certain type of chip, but they both have different partnerships with OpenAI and Anthropic. They've given zero visibility on that revenue for 2026. And, the guidance for 2027 is hey, we'll tell you when it happens, which is why I think it got sold off along with their margins declining slightly on the software business back in May. But that's why this S1 is important that's why, everything about Dario and Sam, if these guys cannot pay what they said they're going to pay because either the business models aren't supporting it, they don't raise enough capital, they're burning too much money, there's a lot of proxy risk that is out there. And it's one of those things you just, and Oracle is the the biggest risk via OpenAI. Oracle right there down 2%. Ironically, that's right. That's right. 85% of Broadcom's ASIC revenue is Google. That's also ironic, as Google is now going to new suppliers. But yeah, that's why Broadcom wants to build chips with all these other companies, because there's other ways. The report came out yesterday. Okay, so it's hitting the wire today, and the street's reacting to it. Maybe Broadcom's a good short here today then. Down 5. The problem is you don't know. These are high quality companies, right? Like what? They're going to take it down 7% today? Like it's that bad? It's going to be tough to get in and out when it's down this much already. AAOI getting rejected at 151. Now it's at 147. MSTR down 5% as Bitcoin continues to take a hit. Yeah, Broadcom September 2nd after NVIDIA. So we're going to have some time for those earnings to happen. Mid apartment smells like a combo of fresh baked cookies and Bath and Body Works. You know, I've never baked cookies here, but if I did, it probably would smell good. Bath and Body Works is elite, but so is Target. Wait, aren't those guys public? Bath and Body Works? I'm pretty sure they are, right? No, they're definitely public. Bath and Body Works stock. Yeah, BBWI. It's down 7% this year. BBWI. It's up 3% today. Wingstop still up 7 right now. Do you think the Anthropic IPO will cause a sell-off like SpaceX IPO? I don't know, man. The numbers are actually going to be, in my opinion, way more justifiable than SpaceX's numbers without a massive share unlock. But like something always happens around September, October. And when you have these big IPOs, it tends to mark a short-term top. Like every time, SpaceX literally was the top short-term. Like you want to be optimistic about it. Then it's like, how is Dario going to be interpreted as a public CEO? Like, is he going to be able to communicate with public shareholders, or is he going to, you know, tell everyone they're going to lose their jobs because of AI? Like, you know, like there's so much nuance to how that company's going to. Also, dude, let's not be naive. The VCs need exit liquidity. I mean, these VCs have bought Anthropic for the past 4 years, basically under $300 billion. That's where the majority of their funding came in, early 2024. I mean, they're getting a 5-6x return on the hottest AI startup. You know, yeah, you have a lot of people who love Elon that will go on CNBC and be like, I'm never selling. I don't know how many people care about that when it comes to Anthropic. Like, yeah, people probably think it's a good investment. There's definitely going to be some people that are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to take some profits because if these token costs go to 0, I don't really know what Dario is going to do. And I bought at 50 billion. It's at 2 trillion. I'm out. Like it's you know, it's really hard to buy something at 50 billion. It goes to 2 trillion or 100 billion and be like, yeah, I believe in the long-term vision. It's like, well, you are already part of the long-term vision and it worked. So like to not sell any, especially when you have LPs that need distributions, it's tough. SanDisk losing it as well, 1670 to 1619, not getting a recovery. Yeah, the S1's going to be important. The S1 will be importante. Why did I say that just now? Why did I? why do I act like I can speak Spanish, dude? Why do I act like I actually can speak a different language? Dude, I took Spanish for 7 years. I don't know shit about Spanish. I know hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy bueno, and that's it. Like 7 years, bro. Cannot even have a conversation. UNH 401. That is still green. I think SpaceX employees love their jobs a lot more and believe in the product a lot less, just a feeling. That's fair. And that's maybe why we didn't see that many sell. I do speak Hindi, but it's kind of like broken Hindi. But I can speak like actual, like if I was stuck in India, I could probably find a way to be like, hey, like, how do I get to this place or whatever? But if I was stuck in Mexico, bro, I don't know what I would do. That's where we need these AI AirPods to like do this language learning stuff. I mean, that is a real core use case from a traveling perspective, which I think would be a use case that's reasonable. Have you seen Narcos on Netflix? Yes. You know what I want to watch again? I want to start Breaking Bad again. I saw a clip of Breaking Bad yesterday randomly. I was like, you know what? I want to start it again. It would be like, I think my 8th time. But that show, man, the experience it takes you on, just one of the most legendary shows ever. Lumentum up 7. Okay, so your Photonics trade coming back a little bit here. And that's getting some more excitement. This was Mr. Tom Lee yesterday on his take for where we think markets are going.
I think the rally is quite healthy, and it's tracking to our view that we could get to 7,900, 8,000 by the end of the month.
Well, that's what your call was, the other day. Ed Yardeni says we're now tracking so well that we can get to 8,400 by the end of the year because of the earnings story that we keep talking about. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think that is sort of the underpinning of this, because 2027 earnings, probably 410 right now. It was around 395 at the start of earnings season, and it's probably going to be by the end of this month close to 425. And so if you put a 20 multiple on that, you're already close to 9,000.
So we keep saying that you've been bullish. You've been right, but you keep calling for this maybe 10% pullback in stocks at some point. Now, we haven't gotten it yet. And you lay out today in a note that says, quote, positive drivers for stocks in the near term remain good AI fundamental demand, right? Strengthening U.S. economy, positive revisions to earnings, and the fact that inflation remains tamer than most expect. Those don't sound like catalysts for a 10% pullback. So what is?
Well, I think pullbacks occur when we're least expecting it, and usually when investors are bullish. So I think the end of August getting to 8,000 is going to set us up for a period where stocks could disappoint, even though underlying fundamentals are good. And part of it is the margin debt's gotten so big. Part of it is we still haven't resolved how the market views Kevin Warsh and his new framework, whether the bond market's going to have a tantrum. And the third is we have midterms coming up, and I think that's a source of uncertainty. And finally, I do think SpaceX, which had an initial unlock, there's still a lot of stock to be unlocked. So I think all of that represents potential traps ahead.
Okay. Steph?
I don't know, guys. You think that's convincing? For 10% down, bro? 10% is not a joke in this market with these algos and retail investors and institutions. Like 10%. Let's look at the last 10% drawdowns. Tariffs, 2025. Trump literally saying, I'm going to tariff every country on the planet. And then starting a war with Iran. Am I missing a 10% drawdown we've had since then? Like on the S&P, peak to trough, am I missing a 10% drawdown other than those two things? And then even the 5% drawdowns were like, something had to happen. It wasn't just margin debt. The Leopold thing wasn't even 10% of the S&P. It was obviously aggressive on the semis, but that's not the S&P. The S&P is a lot more than the semis. The semis could go down 20% in a month, and the S&P was down 2%. I mean, like that's the beautiful thing about the S&P. There's so much more there besides one sector. Now, if it happens, as annoying as it's going to be, it will be one of the best buying opportunities of the year. And it will be, quite frankly, very similar to 2022 and 2018, where we bottom around November, December, or maybe October. And, you get to really, really have some amazing opportunities. But that's also part of the reason I'm doubting it. I'm doubting it because I'm like, what would create that great of an opportunity to buy? Because that would be a hell of an opportunity to buy. So something would have to happen that's kind of irrational enough for the market to just be upset. Amit, tell me if my Intel 105 covered calls are getting called today. Intel, I mean, it could. It's at 104. You should be able to roll out of those pretty easily. Robinhood just got a red candle, 2% down, and get to like 110 next week. Robinhood 97, Intel 104. China invades Taiwan. Dude, China's not going to do it until Trump's gone, if they're going to do it. Like they're going to wait for a different type of person in office. I think they will do it. Hopefully it's not soon, but it's kind of inevitable at this point that they're going to try. But I don't think they're going to do it with Trump in office. Wow, Sandus losing 1,600. Okay, are we going lower? AMD at least still holding 500. Are we going down? Credit and debt issues. Yeah, I mean, that's always lingering. But again, credit and debt has to get really bad for a consumer-based recession or labor market. By the way, Bailey Gifford updated their 13F. Top position, SpaceX, 8%. Then they have Amazon, NVIDIA, Mercado Libre, and Sea Limited. Now, they could have sold SpaceX on the IPO pump. Bailey Gifford's like a massive, massive institutional fund. So, but if they're still holding it, that is a $8 billion position, 51 million shares that they had. Yeah, NVIDIA's stuck right here at 225. 777 on Mr. S&P. Reddit also, little drop right there. Micron losing 970. Rocket Lab very close to testing its VWAP. 80.93, 80.77 for the session. And then AAOI is still at that 148 range. I'm off to work. Good luck with your mom. I appreciate that. I will prove to her that her son is clean. We'll prove it. Granted, look, she probably has some reason to doubt me because when I lived at home, I would leave shit around all the time. But like when it's your own spot, like you don't want to walk into an apartment and it just be filled with junk, you know? Like you want to keep it clean. So I will make sure that she understands how clean I am. Tesla losing 350 as well, 345 from 351. It's meeting the arranged marriage girl today. Oh my gosh, dude. That's hilarious. You know, me, my sister, and my cousin have been talking about marriage more and more because my sister's 32. She's not married. I'm 28. I'm not married. My cousin's 27. She's like eventually, you know, she wants to get married as well. So we were like, who's going to be the first? Because if it's the youngest, it's going to create so much pressure on the older ones. If it's, you know, the older ones, then the young ones are going to be like, all right, you're next. And it's like, when is this shit happening? But it's like, who knows, bro? It's like marriage is like, you know, it's not like all of our parents got married via arrangements. Like none of us want to do that. Okay. You don't marry your cousin, bro. First of all, that's the wrong ethnicity. Okay. If you're going to make that joke, it's not Indians. It's a different one. There is like, I actually have a friend from college who married her cousin, which is it was like a second cousin. When she told me, I was like, that's crazy. She used to joke. She was like, yeah, my dad is literally setting it up. And then she ended up actually getting married to her second cousin. I was like, oh, that's crazy. That doesn't really happen in India. At least not that I know of. Maybe it did happen in the past, but NVIDIA 225 as that continues to be kind of stuck here. What else? What are you going to cook for them? Oh, boy. You think I'm going to cook? You think I'm going to cook for these people? You think I can actually make food that they would want to eat? I am going to the Indian restaurant 10 minutes away and ordering some food. I mean, that's like, there's no way I am cooking, dude. That would be a joke. I want them to at least somewhat enjoy being here for a few hours. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. You can't cook because this kitchen is a mess. That's also true. That's fair. Okay, what else? What other headlines do we have? It's a very low chop Friday type of day. That's what it feels like. That is what it feels like. Brady, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it, man. To help you hire a maid before your mom gets here. I appreciate it. Thank you. I will hopefully not have to hire a maid but deeply, deeply appreciate you being here. We're not getting the other 13F guys. We had Jim Simons yesterday. We talked about the market close, NVIDIA, Meta, Intel, and Palantir, largest positions. He also bought a ton of CrowdStrike and Google. But that's a quant fund that buys, like, they have 3,000 positions, right? Like, we need the funds from the opinionated investors, and we don't have a lot of them out yet. Oh, Leon Cooperman, we got his. Okay, let's see. This guy manages 3.5 billion. This guy's a legend. Let's see what we got from him. He bought GPGI. I don't know what that is, to be honest. He bought White Hawk Minerals. He bought Amrise. He bought KZIA. Now, Leon Cooperman tends to not be super tech-oriented. He added to 23% of Capital One. You're seeing no tech exposure here meaningfully outside of VOO, which he sold a little bit of. Rocket companies he has. Oh, he does have Vertiv. Interesting. This guy doesn't have any of the AI names outside of Oh, he has Amazon, but it's relatively small. It's like a 1% position on a $5 billion fund. He has a ton of Europe, Japan, international, Canada. There's a Canada ETF, EWC. Yo, Canada's beating the US today or this year. Oh my goodness, Canada's beating the United States. What the hell is beating the US from Canada? Don't they only have Shopify? Like, what is in Canada that's beating? What is in this thing? How are they beating us? This thing has Royal Bank of Canada, Shopify, which is 5%, TD Bank, Bank of Montreal. The Canadian banks are beating all the AI tech companies. That is crazy. Literally banks and Shopify. See, this is why the S&P has to get to 8,000. This is kind of disrespectful. Like, what? As we go red. Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, Enbridge, Shopify, RBC, and then TD. Dude, you guys saying put some respect on Tanner's name. I can guarantee Tanner didn't even know there's a Canada ETF. Ask him when he goes live today. Ask him, be like, hey, Tanner, what's the ticker for the Canada ETF? I guarantee you he probably doesn't even know it because he would be surprised that it's beating the US. I think Brookfield's in there as well. That's incredible. AMD, what's the headline? Do we have a run? Do we have a run right here? We're at 504. Wow, there's got to be news there. Unless that's a technical breakout on a Friday with low volume. That's a bit suspicious. Oh, I have the Broadcom news, by the way. Broadcom is coming under pressure after it became known that a critical vulnerability in their NVWare vCenter is being actively exploited worldwide. Wow. That makes more sense than the sell side report. With attackers already persistently controlling 361 compromised IP addresses in the US, Germany, Turkey, Iran, and France. Okay, that actually makes more sense. Once again, this whole cybersecurity debate is why those cybersecurity stocks are trading at crazy multiples, but they are needed more and more. AMD, I don't have a headline, but there you go, 511. That's a big rebound from the 430 lows of last week after the 10% drop on earnings. Almost like that 10% drop was nothing. It's right back. Look at the Spain ETF. Dude, if Spain and freaking Poland are beating us, EWP. Oh my goodness, it's beating the S&P. What the hell is in Spain that's beating Amazon and Google and NVIDIA? It's just all banks, dude. I can't pronounce any of these names. Banco Santander, Banco de Sabadell. These are just all banks. Like, it's like the only banks that haven't really run or broken out heavily are the U.S. banks. JP Morgan 364, slightly green on the day. What is happening in European banks and Canadian banks that's not happening in U.S. banks? Is it because the U.S. banks are taking on all the hyperscaler debt? Like, JP Morgan is still not a $1 trillion company, which is kind of crazy. Like, it's $30 billion away. This one probably will be the first one, but it hasn't really got in that crazy breakout. U.S. banks are all financing the AI build out because of Trump. What does that have to do with Trump? What does Trump have to do with why European banks are exploding? Oh, we got Howard Marks. Okay, let's see. Howard Marks. What do we got? They just don't like Trump. I mean, honestly, maybe that's the reason. Maybe they're not buying U.S. banks because they don't like Trump, and they're buying their own country's banks, and that's enough to keep it moving. Yeah, interest rates, but it's not like globally interest rates are low everywhere. Interest rates are still high across the entire world. Okay, Howard Marks. He bought C Limited, $60 million of it. He bought VSAT. He bought Make My Trip. Wow, interesting. He bought MakeMyTrip.com. He bought Matthews International Corp. He bought TX. He bought Surgery Partners. He bought DPC. He bought CVC. He bought NNBR. He bought Office Property. So the only tech company he bought was C Limited, which he owned in the past. He tends to not be a tech guy. He tends to be more private credit. I don't even think he manages Oaktree anymore, but it's still his fund that gets associated with him. Yeah, nothing that crazy out of this 13F. But that's what you have. AMD is still holding onto the 5 hundos. 507. It did touch 511 right there. I think Leon Cooperman was on this morning. Let's see if we have that clip. And we'll see if he said anything about his portfolio construction. Yeah, here he is. Oh, wow. This guy's wearing a t-shirt. Dude, this guy's a legend. He just doesn't care.
Our portfolio is a market of stocks. We basically buy them up, stock picking, and we find the pickings are somewhat slim. So, I have your message about bonds. I'm very negative on the bond market, mainly because of the fiscal deficit and the fact that the Republicans and the Democrats are not paying any attention to the debt buildup of the country. And so I like to quote two very notable people. One is Warren Buffett, where he talks about in 1999, he talked about what he called God's plan. Okay, once the bull market gets underway, and once you reach the point where everyone has made money, no matter what system where he or she has followed, a crowd is attracted to the game that is responding not to interest rates and profits, but simply to the fact that it seems to be a mistake to be out of stocks. It's exactly where we are now. In effect, these people superimpose, and I cannot miss the party factor on top of the fundamental factors driving the market.
Okay, so Leon Cooperman is not a fan of where interest rates are right now. Now, he doesn't have a lot of tech exposure, so wherever rates go are not going to affect some of the core holdings of his portfolio. Tends not to be that tech focused, but you can see from there, interest rates continues to be the main concern for a lot of these big guys. This is Pat Dorsey, manages $1.5 billion. He actually added 40% to AppLovin, probably at a much higher price than it is today. So that one's down. Uber, he added 60%. I think Uber is going to be a very big buy for these bigger super investors. Meta, he added 23%. He sold 7% of ASML. And then S&P Global. S&P Global has popped up a lot so far. A lot of people are adding to that name as well. Broadcom, again, there were two things. The sell side came out from Wolf Research and said, we're worried that Anthropic and OpenAI are not going to be able to pay them as much as we think they're going to get paid. And then number two is this cybersecurity hack, I guess, that is affecting a variety of countries. Whoa, someone just bought 4 million of calls on Google, 12/18 expiry, 4/15 strike. Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, all three of them have gotten some pretty big option flow this week, a few months out. So people are expecting that Santa Claus rally to take a lot of these names a lot higher. We got to see David Tepper, dude. David Tepper was loaded up on memory. I mean, I think he took profits, but I think also he might be thinking, you know, this memory story is not slowing down, and AAOI back up to 150. He might be keeping them more aggressively. Check Poland's ETF. Dude, is every country just beating the US this year on banks? What is the ticker for the Poland ETF? What is the ticker? Does anyone have it? Take a look at what they're doing. Spain and Canada. Canada's the disrespectful one, dude. Like Shopify and a few banks are beating this. I gotta look into Cerebras. I've not looked into it that deeply, but I will look at it over the weekend. Because the earnings I actually thought were really good, but the valuation is just kind of stupid on it. Wow, it's up 23%. Okay, the S&P is a piece of crap compared to all of the dude. Like the S&P was not the thing to buy in January. It was freaking Poland and Spain. EPOL in this ETF is banks, bro. It's literally all banks. mBank, Bank Polska Kasa Opieki, Bank Polski, Erste Bank Polsaka SA. They're literally all banks. Like, we've got the biggest banks in the world in the US. This is incredible. It's all free. Yeah, Japan has been doing well. That's also because Japan is messing around with their monetary policy in a very interesting way. Korea obviously has been the big winner because of Samsung and SK Hynix. But it's just been all banks. At least for this year. Those have done a lot better. Do you like Webull? I do not like Webull. The earnings growth is not there, in my opinion. Having said that, this stock's been dead for like almost 2 years. So if earnings next week are good, maybe it breaks out. But Robinhood earnings were phenomenal, and Robinhood couldn't break out. So to me, you know, Webull doesn't have that type of growth to be super exciting. I don't even know if it's undervalued per se. Like at $4 billion, it's small enough to make a big move, but is it actually cheap? Like, is the growth trajectory there to think that it stays cheap? SMCI up 1, Microsoft up 0.5. Yeah, look, some people like Webull's trading platform. Obviously, I'm using their charts right here. The stock has not done anything. You know, it's not one of those, and there's not been growth. It's not like you can be like, okay, the street just doesn't get it. Look at the growth. It's like, well, hold on. Like the growth's not even, they're not really compounding in a way where the street's wrong. Like, again, dude, the thing about Hood that's been so amazing is fintechs don't get crazy multiples. Like fintech as a category is new. It really came out in 2019, and you didn't get them to go public until 2021, which was like, you know, the zero interest rate era. And then banks don't get a high multiple because it's on tangible book. That's why SoFi has been stuck for 4 years. So the only way Robinhood really got to break out and become a $100 billion company is by having just massive speed, execution, innovation, products, ecosystem, flywheel, on top of what is effectively an options business that has drove most of the revenue. It's not equities, it's not credit card, it's not banking. It's now prediction markets that came up in the past year. But it's really, they made the product so good for active traders that, you know, they convinced the street this is the future of finance. But it's not an easy thing to do. So if you're like a Webull, like what is that story that you can get wrapped around that keeps you excited? Check the Sweden ETF. Dude, is every ETF beating the US? EWD. Okay, that's down 6%. That's up 6% this year. So Sweden's, we're at least not losing to the Swedes. There's no way the Turks are beating us, bro. Turkey, TUR. There's no freaking way. Oh my goodness, it's matching the S&P, 13%. What do people buy in Turkey? TUR. If this thing says banks again, I don't even know what these are, dude. They look like banks. I don't know what these companies are. Doesn't Turkey have crazy inflation? Like ridiculous inflation? We'll check Romania in a second. Turkey inflation rate is 32%. Who the hell's buying the Turkey ETF with 30% inflation? 32%. Singapore's up 23%. Singapore's got to be all banks and finance. That's mainly what they have. AMD up 4.6 as that continues to go green. Oh, wow. Interesting. We got Palantir showing up on the 13F. UAE's Mumdala Investment Company bought 95,000 shares. You never see Palantir pop up on these 13Fs or Robinhood or Tesla, to be honest. So it's always nice when you see Palantir somewhat involved. Like, it has institutional exposure, but never, like, you're never going to see Bill Ackman or Leon Cooperman or David Tepper. They're just not touching those types of names. Nebius, are we at 275 again? 271, still holding on. The only 13F news we've seen on Grab is that Norway, the Norwegian fund, they bought a new position, 34 million shares. Also, interestingly enough, on Grab, the short float went down the largest in a year. Went from like 320 million shares to 270 million. So you're seeing the short float come down. You're seeing some really strong buys on the institutional side. Again, the company's growing earnings. Question is, when is it recognized by the street? And they're increasing the buybacks. So it is a patient waiting game, but it's also one of those things where you can say, okay, maybe the street doesn't fully get it because the growth is there. Whereas with some other names, like the growth is not there, so the streets, there's nothing to get. But I think that's kind of what happened with Zeta, right? Growth has been there for about a year and a half. Then it broke out. C Limited took about 7 months for this thing to really break out. It was chopped in half. And so the pieces of the puzzle should be coming together. Ondas up 4, Red Cat, that's up 8 as well. So the drone stock's still moving. Yeah, Dan Ives' ETF should be outperforming the market, right? He's more heavily in these names. Ives year to date is up 25%. Yeah, he's been hammering more of the AI names. Berkshire's 13F is not out yet. You're still waiting for that. I wonder if it'll be end of day. Neither is Leopold's, but Leopold's is going to be completely wrong because everything is sold at this point. So no matter what he shows, it's not necessarily something market can actually like reconcile as real because all those positions are done with. OpenAI CFO will have investor meetings today. Interesting. I mean, let's see. Maybe they are thinking of the IPO.
But they have had nowhere near the amount of executive turnover. I mean, there's been turnover in research, and you see a lot of people go back and forth, and companies compete. But the C-suite has been relatively stable. The relatively new CFO, but not a lot of change there. I would say on the OpenAI side, it seems like this is the trifecta that we're going to get as the company goes public. It's Brockman, it's Altman, it's Sarah Friar. Those are the public-facing names. Those are the ones, clearly from what we're learning, who are communicating to investors and trying to smooth things over. I'd also mention on the Friar meeting, this is sort of a regular, almost quarterly check-in they do, but the timing is interesting that Denise Dresser's departure was announced yesterday, late yesterday, ahead of what was a long pre-planned meeting. We knew this was coming, but they do expect to explain this to investors at a time when, yes, there may be volatility priced in, but they're going to have questions over who's leading, who's running, the crown jewel of this enterprise, which is business, which is enterprise. Denise Dresser came over from Slack. She's an old school software sales type of person, and it's not performance related. We see the numbers. She clearly grew revenue and did what she was meant to do.
Yeah, maybe on the Anthropic side, we haven't even mentioned this journal profile of Cami Clark, Emma Day's wife, and how it's difficult to get details on her if you're using Claude. And I mean, some of the details probably not appropriate for TV.
It's a good deep dive. I would agree. There's a detail about, I think this was in that piece, about the Real Housewives of AI. They have a joking text thread about some of the first ladies of AI. I hadn't known a lot about her either, so she's very much a behind the scenes figure. It's a great read, though.
All right, Kate Rooney, thank you for bringing us that.
Real Housewives of AI. That's crazy. I would watch that, though. I would watch that. That would be must-watch TV. Do you think Leopold was late to announce last time because he knew these guys were going to try to take him down on what he owned? Maybe, but from my understanding and the articles I read during the Leopold situation, the reason he was late to announce last time is because the dude sucked at communication and compliance. Like, literally, the rumors were that this guy didn't know how to, like, respond back to his investors. He was managing $50 billion of capital, and, like, he didn't send regular updates. Like, you kind of send a monthly update to your investors if you're managing that type of money. And he just didn't talk. So what I heard is that he was late on the filing because there's only 8 people running the firm. It's like 8 dudes. And like, you know, it's not like a traditional sort of thing where you have all this infrastructure and you have HR and marketing and all these people. It's like, it's just 8 guys that really kind of sucked at communication. So yeah, who knows? Maybe they're going to be late again. I mean, it would be kind of crazy if they're late again after everything that's happened, if they can't submit their shit on time. I mean, Warren Buffett, Bill Ackman, Stanley Druckenmiller, they submit their shit on time. And these guys are legends. And this guy misses the deadline on like something that you have to submit. It's crazy. Sandus back above 1,600. So if we actually don't get it, I would be very surprised here. Yes, Bill Ackman's second largest holding is Uber. By the way, Pelosi's, dude, Uber seems like a buy. It really does seem like a buy. Pelosi's in this thing as well. Like, this is too big of a blue chip stock to be held down forever because of robo-taxi fears. Especially when robo-taxi is not a thing right now. Like, it's not a thing. Like, no one cares about the robo-taxi. No one's talking about it. It's not growing on Waymo side or Tesla side. And I shouldn't say not growing, but not growing to the level by which it's like decimating the auto industry. I mean, like, whatever models you have for robo-taxi, you know, becoming every third mile that's driven in the country, that's just like, it's not happening. I mean, the tech's not even there yet. FSD is amazing, but the tech has still not been legally approved to be in the back seat and have a driverless car just take you around. Like, it's not fully there yet. That's why Waymo is geofenced. Like, you can't deny those cash flows for that long with Uber, especially as they continue to expand. So I think this one's going to be a winner. I think the big guys know this thing can't be. I mean, it's a little bit flat all year. So also it's like been coiling to potentially get that breakout. JP Morgan sets the Knicks value at $12 billion after Lakers sale. You know, I was talking about this with Steve in the morning, ironically. I think if the Lakers are worth 12, the Knicks are worth 15. Having said that, the Knicks aren't as big of a brand as LA because the Lakers have all these championships, Kobe, Magic, Kareem. Like, there's all those people that make Lakers internationally probably bigger than the Knicks. But if the Knicks can win a couple more rings, New York City, like, I think that brand could be worth more than Lakers. It's just the Lakers are so iconic, right? Speaking of the Knicks, $10 billion from John Rogers just released. He sold 13% of his Madison Square Garden, which has went up a lot this year because of the Knicks getting that much momentum. He bought HAE. He reduced 63% of his Intel. This is not really a tech investor. He added 30% to Schwab, bought HLI, bought DT, bought Capital One. So you're seeing some more of the banks get bought up. Sold some of his gold miners. He added 10% to TSM. And he bought the Russell Value ETF. All right, so not crazy tech or semis exposure. He also added to the cruise lines. By the way, Chris is on a cruise. That's the vacations he's on. I didn't know he was on a freaking cruise. So he's continuing to do his due diligence on these cruise lines there. No, Uber is not the next PayPal. I will stand on that. Uber is not the next PayPal. There's no way, dude. Uber's growing. PayPal's not. Like, Uber, this will have its day. And Uber's leadership is just so much better than the chaos at PayPal. 2 CEOs in less than a year. Like, or 3 actually. I think Uber's gonna be fine. You're lucky OKC had injuries. Dude, hold on. OKC won their entire ring because of the Pacers injury. Like, hold on. Like, he can't even. I mean, that was a Game 7 injury. But yeah, you're right. Like if it was OKC, it probably would have been a little tougher than the Spurs. I agree with you. I'm just saying, like injuries are part of the game. It happens. Like also, again, the way the Knicks won that Game 4 comeback, like the dominance 4-1. Also, Wemby, Wemby's elite. Even if the healthy OKC would have beat Wemby, like Wemby's legit. So it was definitely a much deserved ring for how it happened. Yeah, Lakers also had Doncic that got injured as well. That's also true. Although I don't think they would have beat OKC even with him. But they would have had a much better chance. Broadcom, no other headlines other than the cybersecurity thing. Bank of America says the U.S. debt is a concern. 40 trillion is going to be surpassed this year. We could be 50 trillion by 2029. And we are concerned that bonds continue to be the highest yield since 2001. I mean, look, Bank of America has been bearish all year on the market. If they're resorting to like the debt as their new bear case, that to me is actually bullish because like the bear case hasn't worked out this year. The rate hikes haven't worked out. Like everything, Bank of America said we would top at 7,100. Like we've obviously not. If they're going to the U.S. debt as like our biggest issue. The thing is, no one gives a shit about the debt. Like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Like we say we care about the debt. We don't actually care about the debt. It's all bond market, credit market virtue signaling about the debt when we don't actually care. There's actually a really good episode by the Compound and Friends where they had a guest talk about how no one legitimately cares about the bond market, but everyone has to act like they care about the bond market to like sound like it matters. I mean, dude, what's the difference between 39 trillion and 42 trillion? Like it's still unpayable. It's still ridiculous. It's still like, and we're not solving it anytime soon. We're not going to raise enough money to solve it through taxes. We're not going to cut enough spending to solve it. Like it's just one of those things that's there. We all just ignore it and have a good life and we move on. This is an L take, but like, what are we going to do about it? Honestly, if Doge couldn't do anything about it, we're not going to do. We collect 6 trillion in taxes. We're not going to double tax revenue. And if we do, I would imagine we're going to have a lot of unemployment because people will lose their jobs if other, and businesses have to pay more in taxes. Like you can't just artificially double in taxes. Like there are other corresponding sequences of events that hurt, even if you were to tax at 90-95%. Like, okay, people need to then have money to invest. And that's the whole thing about America, that you have the money to invest, even with, 35-50% taxes. So we can't do taxes. We're not going to cut welfare spending. That's just not going to happen. Politically, Republicans or Democrats can't do that. The only argument is AI then, right? AI is going to have so much growth, so much GDP expansion that we're going to outgrow the debt, which, look, I'm bullish on AI, but like not to the point where we're going to have that much level of growth to actually pay back that debt. Maybe to manage it a little bit better. And also if we do, where would that come from? Very simple. It would come from robotics. I'll put the debt clock in the chat for those that want to see it. It would come from robotics, right? It's an $80 trillion market for global labor as a percentage of GDP. If we have that many robots producing things, that's Elon's thesis on money becoming worthless because the cost of goods and services basically become zero. But then you don't have people working anymore. Like if robots actually replace all of those jobs and people aren't working anymore, like, yeah, you have all this productivity, but then doesn't it balance out by people not working, which means they don't have the money because they've lost their jobs to pay for basic goods? That's where the U.S. has to come in with a UBI, which guess what? Increases the debt. Like, I think the debt thing is never going to be solved. And I think we should just ignore it. Because, like, no one has a real solution for how we navigate it. No, we shouldn't be absolutely reckless with it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, we're not paying back 40 trillion anytime soon. Blue Shift, thank you for the super chat. Are you serious that Tesla FSD isn't there yet? It's completely superior. Have you ever tried it? So I own a Tesla. I use FSD every week. It's amazing. My broader argument is that robo-taxis are not running the streets of America or any other country, quite frankly, in a way that would get you to really think that Tesla should be like a $10 trillion company. That was the vision that ARK put out in this model, that, like, it'll cost $1 per mile and every other mile will be driven by a robotaxi. Like, we're not there yet. We're not there. FSD is amazing, but we're not there. We're not even close to it. We're not even a tenth of the way of being there. We're in these geofence cities in Austin and San Francisco. Like, we're not there at all. That's why Elon doesn't talk about it. When's the last time Elon actually talked about FSD in a meaningful way? It's orbital space data centers and Optimus. Like, I think he's also just like, all right, yeah, that's a big thing that we're going to try to do, but like, that's not where the growth's coming from anymore. Like, you can't be buying Tesla on FSD. There's no way. You have to be buying it on Optimus. And that's why I think, we need that next layer of AI that is beyond LLMs that gets people excited. Yeah, now he's talking about flying cars, right? Like, it's like, dude, I can't call a robotaxi, and most people in the country can't call a robotaxi to pick them up. And if it was cheaper than an Uber, all of us would be calling robotaxis. Because as soon as you step into it and you feel what the experience is amazing, like, that would create a brand new, but it's just not there yet. It's not there. Even if the tech is trying to get there. And I believe the tech is there. I think the regulatory frameworks and actually getting it to scale is not officially there, which is why you're not seeing it officially go through. Nebius, are we still holding 270? Wow, 271. A lot of these names have given up their pump today. Nebius has not. As that continues to move. Yeah, or in a way that would disrupt Uber. I mean, people try to shit on Uber and be like, oh, like, anyone can download the Robotaxi app. It's like, hold on. Uber has 300 million monthly. Like, you don't just get people to download an app and start using it that easily. Like, there's a moat to a user base that is very sticky because Uber's been around for more than a decade. So you got to compel them with cheaper prices or with a way better experience and with supply. Like, dude, Uber had to do some ruthless shit to get supply back in freaking 2009. Like, they got to the point where Tim Cook literally called them into the office because of what Travis was doing on the app to like hide Lyft from seeing his drivers and stuff. And he like almost threatened to take him off the app store because he was like, dude, this is illegal. Like, you can't do this. But Travis didn't care. He was like, dude, we need more drivers. We got to figure it out. Like, it's just not easy to build that type of network, especially at scale. NVIDIA 226, as that is stuck below 227, but still up above 220. I use FSD every day. So do I. Not every day. I use it every week, but my use of it is not enough to say that the entire world is using it yet. Rock Lab won a couple contracts this week. I don't think they won a new one today. Actually, no, I think they did. Hold on, let me see if I can pull this up. It might have been last night. It wasn't really announced, but it was in some of these filings. Let's see if I can pull it up. UMAC up 27%. This one's been the biggest drone beneficiary here today. SanDisk, did we come right back? Wow, SanDisk, okay, 1665. This might actually be the retest to buy on. This might be the retest. Yeah, it's a pretty good recovery. If it breaks 1645, I think it's going up. 1645, I think you might see. Wow, that came all the way down to 1580 and right back. That actually looks kind of good, not gonna lie. Hood looks kind of good too, not gonna lie. This has been a good week for trading. This week has actually been, all 4 days have done really well. And honestly, it's been Hood and Rocket Lab for me all week. All week it's been Hood and Rocket Lab. I kind of refined the system that I had this week. I was talking to my uncle about it yesterday. Like, I changed a few things I was doing and it's like working. Because again, I don't have volume because I trade after the show. So I need to do something to counteract the fact that the volume's not there. And there's a few things this week that I looked at that I think have like helped me still benefit from a good setup, even without like the 9:30 a.m. volume being there. Bloom Energy up 1, even though that was up 6 today. Yeah, also a good week for investing. That's also, it's a good week when you have, whatever, 1,000 shares of Nebius and it goes up, I don't know, $50, 50,000 in a week. Like, that's not bad. That's not bad. You have 100 shares of Nebius and it's up 5,000 in a week. Like, I mean, just a massive week across the board for Nebius, CoreWeave, SanDisk, NVIDIA finally getting some love. 220s. The software names, Palantir, obviously continuing its momentum. Just a crazy jolts of excitement finally coming back into a lot of these names. Admits he prefers to mute because he has no volume. That's funny. That's a good one. That's a good one. Whoa, Thrive Capital, 215 million in Amazon. Dude, these guys. Part of the reason I invested in Shopify was because they put 100 million in at 95. I was like, okay, the big money is not freaking gonna lose $100 million on Shopify. Like, a good quality company is not gonna be dead because of agentic commerce. And big money is recognizing that. Wow, 215 million in Amazon. They also bought SpaceX. They also sold Carvana. They also have Oscar. They also bought Figma. Wow. So they bought SpaceX, 18 million shares, 3 billion. They bought Amazon, 900,000 shares, 215 million. They obviously bought Shopify. That was a while ago. 895,000. That was disclosed before. Figma, 4.3 million. Oscar, they've had that for a while because I think Josh is on the board of that company, right? They sold Carvana. They sold StubHub. The Amazon thing is interesting. They must have got that thing at like 230, 220. They bought the dip on that. Amazon down right here. Huh. Amazon and Shopee is what they bought as the new positions. And then SpaceX. The thing about SpaceX is we don't know if these guys are still holding it. Because if you bought it at 135 and it went to 230 and their 3 billion turned into like, 5 billion. I mean, at some point they might have taken profit. Now, then again, I don't know if, no, they were allowed to because they were just buying it on the open market. There's no restrictions on them. So we're going to have to wait another 5 weeks to see if they're actually holding on to this stuff just because they ran so much. But all right, Amazon getting some more big money coming into it. And then Shopify, they disclosed that a while ago when it was around $90. Is Broadcom still hit? We got Jason in the chat. Worst 2 weeks to travel and have a baby. I leave and the market instantly explodes. Could have been a 2 week stint that makes your year. Wow, Broadcom still getting hit. Yeah, I mean, the level of volatility in the past 2 weeks, especially from an options perspective, has been gigantic. And, obviously the options added more leverage here. But I think also people have been kind of afraid of taking on that much risk given what we experienced. So just holding shares have done very well. Broadcom lows of day, 394. Bloom's about to go red. Nebius slipping up a little bit. So you're seeing these names start to break down a little bit here. SPY red. SPY goes red. Actually, by the most, it's been red all day. SanDisk is going to have a hard time breaking out if SPY is going red. Tesla, 350 to what? 338. 11:15 dumpy dump on a Friday. Is Burry short NVIDIA? Yes. He's been short NVIDIA for a while. I mean, again, you're going to need the S&P to really have a correction here for NVIDIA to get to the low 100s like he's thinking. But, dude, if NVIDIA gets to $100, like, it's going to, like, we're talking about taking out $2.5 trillion in market cap. Like, some of this stuff just doesn't feel practical. Like, if he had 180 puts, 170 puts, like, okay, like, maybe like low 100s is a little tough right here. Because Reddit's also taking it. I don't know. I don't think this Broadcom dip's a good buy because, like, we don't have information on the dip. Down 6% is also, to me, not really a dip. I mean, this thing was at 360, 370 2 weeks ago. Granted, I think the reason here is a little, like the reason's not a thesis breaker by any. It's just a knee-jerk reaction based on the reason, so it could jolt back up. But you'd have to bet that that reason doesn't have any lingering issues, which we just don't know about. There's not enough information. But 6% is definitely a bit aggressive on this one. Disney CEO is live. Let's see any updates we're getting from Disney.
Percent. The parks, I think, were a big surprise to people, and they just keep generating returns for the company, streaming and expanding margins. We're delivering on everything that we said we're going to deliver on. I think there's clarity inside of the organization in terms of where we need to go next. A lot of stability with the team. So, almost 6 months in, I'm feeling pretty good about where we are.
So where do you want to go next? How is your strategy going to be different than Bob Iger's?
Well, first, Bob left me with a very strong business. Streaming is now profitable. It wasn't just a couple of years ago. The parks division, we talked about turbocharging. That is out now into the world, and you're seeing that pay dividends back to us. ESPN has made the pivot to direct to consumer. Our movies and our movie slates are really strong. So he provided me with a foundation from which we can now grow into this next chapter. And this next chapter is about, number one, telling great stories. We'll never forget that. We want to move with more speed and urgency than we have before, embrace technology even more aggressively than we have in the past. And importantly, bring this company together to act like one Disney, which you've heard me say before. There are so many other competitors out there that would love to have the IP that we have, that would love to have the collection of businesses that we have in the scale. We have all of that. So if we operate as one consolidated business across everything that we do, that is incredibly powerful.
For years,
I mean, the same argument on Disney continues to be, I think, the concern, which is, can that IP continues to be monetized, and what is the new IP they're creating? And they've had some good movies this year, $3.95 on Broadcom. But the parks business is really the most exciting part about it. I'm trying to see Gerstner's 13F. That's not out. Druckenmiller, let me see if I can get his. They just might not be up right now. And Tepper is the other interesting one. Yeah, these guys don't have those out yet. For those asking about Broadcom, there was a cybersecurity hack and there was a sell-side bearish note that came out today. That's why you're seeing those get read. Okay, we got the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Here we go. You guys ready? This is the Saudis. This is oil money. They only bought one new thing. They have Lucid. They have Take-Two. They have Uber. They bought one new thing. Anyone want to guess? You want to guess? 20 seconds. Who wants to guess? It's a 64% position. I don't think they're selling. It's a $26 billion position. Dude, if it was Palantir, that'd be crazy. It's not NVIDIA. It's not Palantir. I mean, this is why Elon Musk is Elon mother effing Musk. SpaceX. 26 billion, 154 million shares they bought on the IPO. Now, did they sell it after they doubled that 26 billion in less than a month? I don't know. But the Saudis tend to not sell. They've held Uber for a long time. They've held Take-Two for a long time. They've held Lucid. I don't know why for the past 5 years, but they've held Lucid for forever. I don't think they're going to sell that SpaceX stock. Also, Elon's really close with the Saudis. I mean, they have a very good relationship with Saudi Arabia. He's been to the region many times. They obviously want Tesla to expand there as they're building out a more modern world. So that's some permanent capital that's probably going to be stuck in SpaceX for a while, in my opinion. $26 billion, dude. Goodness. SpaceX, is it reacting at all to that? SpaceX down 3%. See, and the Saudis don't care because they don't need... They're not running a hedge fund. Like the Saudis, they make so much money off oil. They can like have investments for 20 years because they don't need to trade these stocks. So, they really are dedicated to being long-term investors because they don't need to have short-term moves. But that's a big position. It's a very big position for SpaceX. Yeah, and honestly, they probably, long term, it's hard to not be bullish SpaceX. It's short term, the question of the dynamics of price. But, I don't think the Saudis are worried about it falling by 5 billion because they don't need it. I want to see the memory names, dude. We got to see if these big guys are unloading or adding to these memory names. Q2 ended what, June 30th? So Micron was literally 1250 that day, around that time, which means we're not going to know exactly when these guys sold. But if they sold at any moment in Q2 outside of April, which was still part of the lows, end of May, early June, if we see sells, they would have to be end of May, early June to say they sold the top. If we see buys, unless they got it in April after the ceasefire, they bought the top as well. If there's no sells and only buys. And Tepper and Druckenmiller are going to be the big ones that we have to see. Look up Gavin Baker's. We already talked about his in the morning. Let me pull it up. There's only 2 new positions. Zoom and what's the other one? Zoom and VST. Everything else he's had the same for a while. Yeah, Unity. This is the portfolio right here. Unity we talked about a while ago. They were added. SPY getting a little hit. He did not sell NVIDIA. I mean, he sold 35% of his NVIDIA, but he did not sell out of NVIDIA. He sold some of Coherent. He sold Lumentum. He sold Ciena. He sold DKS, and he sold some NVIDIA. He added to Micron, 21,000 shares, added to Unity, added to Google, added to Zoom. That was a new position. Wow, he bought 1 million shares of this thing, $100 million position just in Zoom. That is absolutely for Anthropic. And I don't think any other reason. He bought 78 million of VST. Credo is also a new position, 102 million. Roblox is at for a while. Twilio is at for a while. And Palo Alto, that's also a new position, 562,000. So it's actually Zoom, Vistra, Palo Alto, and Credo. Unity is new, right? No, Unity's at for a while. Unity, he's just added for a while. Then A-Lab, he's at for a while. Yeah, so he did sell 677,000 shares of NVIDIA. He still has 1.2 million as the semis take a dump right now. Whoa, SpaceX continuing to get hit. Micron still green. Is Broadcom causing this for the semis? SPY now low of days officially. Nebius loses 270. AMD looks like it might lose 500. He does not have Cerebras. Cerebras down another 6% today. Yeah, I don't have a headline. It's a Friday after a big week, which could be the reason. Where's AAOI? That one, the fact that that's holding 140 is pretty incredible. 147. Yeah, look, the SPY volume, 8 million shares is crazy, guys. Like, this is, no one's playing the game. We need people to play the game. If no one's playing the game, there's no game to be played. That was deep. That was kind of bars, to be honest. That was kind of deep. I'm not going to lie. If no one's playing the game, there's no game to be played. Put that on a t-shirt right now. Put that in like the quotes that like Socrates used to say. Like, if no one's playing the game, there's no game to be. That's kind of fire, low-key. Like, tell me that's not. That's a tweet. That should be like a 50 million viewed tweet. Yeah, trademark that, dude. But yeah, 8 million shares on S&P. There's nothing. Oh, tell me that's not like kind of deep. Like, if you're having a conversation with someone one day and you just bust out, if no one's playing the game, there's no game to be played. I mean, tell me they're not going to look at you and be like, that's deep. Like I think that's legit. Thrive Capital, $3 billion in SpaceX, and then Saudi Public Investment Fund, $26 billion in SpaceX. It's really SpaceX that's SpaceX and SAS is dominating these 13Fs. Nothing else. Is that your grinder profile? Okay, you know what? This is getting a bit ridiculous. Although, like, if I were to make a profile, not on Grindr, but like in general on the dating apps, I feel like that's a perfect bio. Like, tell me that's not instant likes immediately. People are like, oh, that's deep. I want to learn more about this person, you know? I leave for 1 hour and all the stocks are down. I am sorry you came back to a red day, but it was a really good week, and it is a Friday, which is the perfect recipe for this stuff going down. We got another 13F. This person manages 2.9 billion. That's got to be like a French name. I don't know how to say this. Francois Rocon of Gavarni Capital. Sold 2% of Google. Added to Progressive. Sold 1% of Meta. Added to Schwab. Bought the New York Times. Why are the... Berkshire bought the New York Times last time as well. Bought Viva, which did great, software. Bought MasterCard, bought Hawkins, reduced Apple, bought the Qs, not a lot. Sold 6% of Microsoft. Sold 55% of TSM, sold 7% of SPY. Okay, so nothing too crazy here. We're still waiting for the big ones. The big ones is what we need to see. The big ones are the ones we are looking for. Oil is flat to down. Yeah, guys, there's just like no volume. Or there's not even like, I mean, there's a few option flows that are a bit aggressive, but you're not seeing the like 100K, 200K premiums come in today. And there's definitely not a lot of weekly 0 DTEs that are being traded here. Like, I'm pulling up the volume for a couple of these stocks with like 2,000 contracts, 1,000 contracts. It's not a lot. Robinhood looks like it might go below 97. Meta volatility kind of flat, 592. Oh, you guys heard the sirens? It's been better with the sirens recently. A few months ago, it was like every day there was so many of them. The cops are coming for you. Dude, if they put me in handcuffs, I would be like, guys, if no one's playing the game, there's no game to be played. Think about that. I'd be like, if I wasn't breaking the law, you guys wouldn't have anyone to arrest. If I wasn't playing the game of life and breaking the rules, you guys wouldn't have a job. Think about that. No one's playing the game. There's no game to be played. SpaceX down 2.9 as that continues to go red. Let's hear from the professor. He was on yesterday, and let's get kind of his take of where he thinks oil is going. I know you guys are still thinking about the quote because you should. It's deep. There's a lot to analyze there. I mean, quite frankly, I don't want to put that quote up there with the deepness of Bohemian Rhapsody, but I'm just saying, like, I think Freddie Mercury would think that quote was pretty deep as well. He would think about it. If I say so myself, I'm just saying.
Clearing event. And I think that gave confidence to people. Well, there's some leverage built in there, but it's not excessive. And then the CPI and the PPI report today, this week, are actually quite good. Goldman Sachs, which is the best at looking at all the details on how that affects the PCE deflator that comes out later in the month, lowered their estimate of what the PCE is going to be, both for the CPI and the PPI. Said it's going to go up only 0.2%. And half of that, 1/10 of that percent, is that crazy portfolio management section of the price index. That is mostly due to the rise of the stock market. Certainly not a bad thing. So, I mean, what we got this week in terms of real data. Now we do get, of course, retail sales tomorrow, but certainly on the price, I have a feeling if oil certainly stays in that low 80s, I don't see any way that Warsh is going to raise in September, and the earnings parade continues.
Yeah, it seems like we can scratch out the hike for September. I asked.
By the way, part of the reason we're red today, consumer sentiment was a miss, but also retail sales. We didn't talk about it too much. The street wanted 0.1%. It was negative 0.6. So you get a bad retail sales print, like a pretty bad retail sales print with, which is ironically good for inflation, with a bad consumer sentiment print. I mean, I'm not saying that's the reason we're red, but you could put those together as like part of a reason for why we're not continuing the rally.
A question at the very top of the program, Professor, and I'd like your answer to it as well. Whether investors are simply too bullish. For a variety of reasons, they're justified to be bullish, but some would say, well, could have an earnings bubble. Maybe this is the peak of it, and other reasons as well. Or are we not bullish enough because we actually have more staying power in the earnings story than we think, along with some other issues like inflation coming down, and then the Fed eventually cutting interest rates, not raising them.
And productivity, which, as you know, it has lagged the first 2 quarters of this year, but it looks like it might really pick up in this third and fourth quarter. I mean, AI really beginning to come in, and AI not just causing the earnings to go up because of the hyperscalers and all the spending on the infrastructure, but again, as we've talked about so many times, firms using it to reduce their own expenses, to increase the margins, which have been, pretty stagnant for the non-tech group. If you take a look historically. Now, certainly overall, and as you commented at the beginning of the program, I mean, margins overall on the S&P are at all-time highs.
Which is why that earnings growth continues to be so strong, and that's why, we're trading at all-time highs in the market. By the way, folks, we got another 13F from a pretty big whale who just sold a ton, not just a ton, they sold all of their Broadcom on a day where Broadcom is obviously getting hit pretty hard. Our boy Matt Money sold his Broadcom. He said, sold Broadcom, bought GPIX. I now have over 2,500 shares, which will give me 40 cents per share per month. So GPIX, for those that don't know, is Goldman Sachs S&P 500 covered call income ETF. So it's an actively managed ETF using a call strategy. And our boy Matt is out of Broadcom and into GPIX. Now, I don't know when he bought it. I think he bought it like 330, 340. I don't actually know when he bought it, but it looks like he's going for a little bit more safety right now. Broadcom versus a covered call ETF, definitely not as safe. And you have more whales that are out there continuing to dump this name today. 393 down about 5.8% as it continues to go down. I don't have the rest of his 13F, but I do have that tweet. So I don't know if we're going to get Drux or Altimeter anytime soon. If we don't, then we're going to have to talk about it next week. Again, I will not be doing a market close today. Just not going to be here. Going to be with family. But I'll ask Steve. Maybe Steve does the close today. If not, then if you follow me on X, I will definitely tweet about all these different 13Fs. But also, if you're, again, even if I'm not here at Cactus Jack, you've got to be in that terminal. It's for free. Hooks up to your WhatsApp. Linking it right there. I can promise you Cactus will have the updates after the bell if we get them. We should be getting them throughout the day. We might get them like in an hour, even if we don't get them right now. But if not, after the bell, Leopold, Druckenmiller, all those guys, we should get it. Does GPIX do good if the market crashes? Well, it will go down because the S&P will go down. Like in freaking March, it was at 50, which was down 5% year to date. Sorry, 7% year to date, which was basically what the S&P was down. But the dividends you get from the covered calls and the premiums they're selling on top, it's meant to replicate the S&P, but with the addition of those dividends from the premiums on covered calls. So yeah, it's going to go down, the underlying asset, if the S&P goes down, but you'll still collect some premium along the way. Nebius 267, Uber down about 0.5% as well. See, you guys, I'm telling you, it was deep. Look at that. Don't love your job, job your love. Okay, that one actually makes no sense. That was stupid. But the other person who said, if the pizza isn't cut, what was the quote? Someone was like, if you don't cut the pizza isn't cut. I mean, that's deep. If you don't cut the pizza isn't cut. I'm telling you, that was off the dome. I promise I didn't steal that from anybody. I promise. I didn't hear that in a Drake song or anything like that. We're seeing low volume on the S&P. No one's playing the game, which means there is no game to be played. I'm telling you, there's something there. I'm not even trolling. 100%. I'm as I'm saying it, I'm like, hold on, this is like, I could be remembered for eternity for this type of a quote. Like genuinely, I could like the LLM should be, quoting with my analysis of this quote if someone ever asks about deep philosophy. It's not Jay-Z lyrics. I think this kind of rivals a lot of the stuff Jay-Z is. I mean, he's had some good bars, but like, has he ever said if no one's playing the game, there's no game to be played? Yeah, I don't think he's ever said that. So, just saying. Yeah, volume's still kind of bad here on the S&P. I came back to the stream for this. Dude, there's no volume. What do you want me to do? We got Broadcom falling off a cliff for this weird sell-side report and this cybersecurity concern. We have memory that's just flat. The drones are at least up today. It's kind of hard to trade this stuff too, because like if there's no volume, you kind of don't know, like Robinhood getting back to 97, like is that even real? Could it just fade right back to 96.50 for whatever reason? Intel was at 107 today, now at 102, and now S&P going red. You're just seeing everything kind of consolidate or stay flat. Tell Triple V to buy something. I think he's traveling right now. So I don't even know if he's like actively trading. Is NVIDIA going up on earnings this time? I need to know. I think so, Tesla Granny. I think so. If they don't, we're topping out after NVIDIA earnings. If NVIDIA falls 10%, we're topping out. September is going to be ugly. Like if they can't make a move up, at least let them stay flat. But every time they stay flat, the next 2 days they fall off a cliff. Like it sucks, but it happens every time with NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is basically the market, right? If NVIDIA can't make a move after what's going to be probably the best earnings we've ever seen, yeah, we're going to be taking a breather. I just don't think we have to take like a 10% downhill move on the S&P. So that one's going to be very, very important. It's from a Queen song. Hold on, let's ask Gemini. Has anyone ever said a quote, if no one is playing the game, there is no game to be played? She's going to say no one's ever said that. Yeah, there you go, guys. Like, come on. 5 trillion in CapEx. We have to trust the answers it gives us. No famous historical figure, philosopher, or writer is recorded as saying the exact phrase. Outside of me. Like, you guys just witnessed history on this stream today. Like, genuinely witness history. And it's actually deep. Like, you can joke and say it's not deep, but like in the back of your head, you're like, it's pretty deep. That's what happens on a day where no one's actually playing the game in these markets. All right, I think that's it for us. We'll see if we get these other 13 ups later. But in small print, because no one is that stupid. It's a good quote, dude. It's a good quote. We are going to have a really exciting Basis Points episode next week with a special guest. I told you guys about the quant guest, but there's another guest that's going to be joining. So we're going to have 2 guests next week that I think you guys will enjoy. We'll keep the regular episode as always. We'll have another episode today at 6 p.m. So we'll have our regular Basis Points tonight. But next week we have 2 really good guests that I think you guys will like. Yeah, Yeah, I'll be back Monday. Futures, unless Trump says something, I don't think futures we're going to have any serious price. I mean, if people aren't trading today, part of the reason futures have been so exciting over the past 7 months is because every Saturday Trump says something about Iran and then the market has to react to it, even though it becomes incredibly volatile. Or he says something good about Iran and the market reacts to it positively. So oil's kind of stabilizing. The semis are back. Software is stabilizing. Like, you might just have a boring market for the next couple months. And honestly, that would not be a horrible way to end out the year after the insanity that we have collectively all been experiencing over the past couple of weeks. Elaine says, have a great weekend. Elaine, you too as well. I know you've been spending more time with your daughter. Shout out to Elaine, OG of the channel, OG Palantard as well. It's been a fun couple weeks for people in Palantir, fun couple weeks for people in software, fun couple weeks for at least the recovery in software. Obviously a fun week for those in Nebius and CoreWeave heavy. Like, it's been one of those weeks where everyone got a little piece of the pie, even Tesla rebounding. Shopify, Reddit, S&P, Rocket Labs getting above that $80 range, SpaceX recovering. I mean, just a lot of these names that have made a move back, which is nice to see. Zeta, big week for them. SoFi at least holding above 18. It was stuck at 15, 16 a while ago. AOI is up. Google recovering from the 320s. So it's one of those things where if we do chill out for the next month, maybe that's okay. Yeah, the 30-year bond is not fun, but the market's also coming to grips with it. And now it's going to be up to the Fed to figure out where this goes. This is a hay in a needle stack moment. That is correct. I haven't used that phrase in so long, quite frankly, because sometimes, you don't, you let the phrase speak for itself. You don't have to overuse it. You let it kind of digest into the consciousness of the world. But the hay in a needle stack is the actual way to make the point of what people are trying to say when they say needle in a haystack. And there was that beautiful day in 2023 when I said hay in a needle stack that so many of you remember. And that went down in the history books. So it is not needle in the haystack. If you're trying to find something, like if it's hard to find something, it would be harder to find a hay in a stack of needles than a needle in a stack of hays. Like, if you actually think about it, my version is the correct version, and it's the deeper version. Just like the quote we heard today. So I don't know what to tell you guys. But that's how it is. Just end the stream now. Dude, I'm telling you this quote, if no one's here to play the game can't be played. Like, there is something there. There is something freaking there. The next time I have like a public appearance that we're all hyped for, whether it's like an earnings call question or like some event, I'm just, that'll just naturally come through and you guys will know at that moment. And everyone in the audience, they're going to sit back and think about that one. They're going to sit back and think about it. Tess says, no, we won't. All right, whatever. That is it for us. Do we have to do word of the day? I mean, that quote in and of itself was deep enough, I feel like, to be the word of the day. He's lost it. Honestly, we just don't have these 13 Fs. Like, that's the only thing we need today. And I'm really curious, dude, Tapper and Druckenmiller, but it might be after hours too, so we might just have to wait for that. Until then, I think the market's also reacting of like, why would we make any big decisions on these stocks when it's Friday, low volume, we've already had a massive rally, and we don't know what the big guys are doing yet. So you might just have to wait for it. Oh yeah, we do have to do song of the week. We do have to do that. Okay, we'll do that as well. So word of the day, autocatalytic, a process that accelerates itself. Its output creates the conditions for even more of the same process. The company's growth became autocatalytic. More users attracted developers, better products attracted more users, and the cycle accelerated. Okay. Yeah, easy word. This one wasn't too crazy. Sounds like a part to a car. Loki does. All right, so that's our word of the day. Song of the week. I think we'll do the prompt on ChatGPT. Let's just say, now I want a song of the week. It needs to be from the 70s to 90s. Classic song. Probably fighting for top 25 all time. Give me one to listen to. Let's see what it says, and then you guys can agree if it's like worth. Dreams, Fleetwood Mac. Okay, is that it? Can I just give me a consensus like W or L in the chat? If I see more L's, we'll do a different one. If I see more W's, then this is the Dreams, Fleetwood Mac. The hell is Fleetwood Mac? 1977? Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood rock band, London. They sold more than 120 million records worldwide. Okay, I'm seeing more W's. I'm seeing way more W's. Okay. Listen for the simplicity. The rhythm says hypnotic, while the vocal carries essentially emotional weight. This belongs in the conversation. Yes, yes or no? We're legit? Yes? Yeah, okay, let's do a poll real quick. We'll do a poll real quick. That's how we'll figure this out every week. I think you guys like it, though. I think you guys like it. Dreams, Fleetwood Mac. Dreams, good song to listen to. Yes or no? All right, I will let you guys know on Monday what people think. You don't know Fleetwood Mac? No. I mean, dude, I barely knew Queen. It's another British band. I know Queen's from London now. I bought Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, last night. I rented it for like $3, so I'm like in the middle of watching it. Like started last night, but I fell asleep. So I'm actually trying to get fully educated on the whole story. I know the Beatles, okay. I know the freaking Beatles. I don't think Fleetwood Mac is like the Beatles. But Donvin, thank you for the super chat. Battling through a recent layoff. Your goofy ass made me smile this morning in between job applications. Thank you, brother. Donvin, I'm sorry about the layoff, man. But yeah, happy you got a little bit of humor in the midst of it. If there's anything I can do to help, I don't know what field you work in, but like hit me up on X. I mean, for anyone who's got laid off, I will. For anyone who's got like laid off, and I think I can help the most in tech. I know some people, if like there's anything I can do to like introduce a recruiter or something like that, or just introduce a person who works at a certain company, just hit me up. I can't promise I can do something, but if I can, I will try to make any connection. Like someone actually hit me up 2 weeks ago and I made a connection. I don't know if it's going to result in a job, but anything I can do, I can try to help out. Leah, thank you for the $10 super chat as well. Super chat for all the deep insights. I appreciate it. I really do hope that people take that quote and they believe. 82% of you say yes. Okay, it's that good of a song. All right, Dreams. That's what we'll be listening to over the weekend. And that's what we got. All right. Thank you all for being here. I will be back on Monday for the market open. Again, guys, it means the world. It's been a long week. It's been one of those weeks where getting to just see the market go up again and getting to participate in the economic mobility of us allocating to assets and being crazy enough to think that we can pick stocks. Like, it is really cool to see that journey be rewarded, given how much it was not rewarded in July. And it's part of the reason we do this, right? It's part of the reason we spend so much time, dedicate all this time. Like, I know a lot of us ultimately want to give back to our families. That's like the real big purpose most of us invest. And so we're doing the right thing. We're doing it the right way. We're trying our hardest. We're doing the best we can. And in the midst of all this, you know, there will be moments of volatility, but at the end of the day, this is the game. This is the game. We all have to play the game. Otherwise, there is no game to be played. And that is why we continue to play this game. Having said that, we are going to spam Steve's stream.
So I was actually like, I don't know where that was going, but that, this is why we do this. This is why you guys watch everything. Spam Steve's stream with no one is playing the game. That's it. We'll do it. Well, he will be so confused. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. No one is playing the game in caps too. In caps. Link is stream right here. In caps. No one is playing the game. That is what we can do. The mic did not cut out when I said it. Bro, the mic better not have cut out when I hit the bar. Please tell me the mic did not cut out when I said that. It did? No fucking way, dude. No way. Oh, wait, but you guys knew what I was going for anyway, so it actually makes it even better. You guys already knew what I was. Hold on. Did it actually get cut out? Play this game. Having said that, we are going to play, but at the end of the day, this is the game. This is the game. We all have to play the game. Otherwise, there is no game to be played. And that is why we continue to play this game. Having said that, you guys wanted the mic to cut out, but it did not. Because even the microphone knows that quote is too good. All right, I'm dragging it. All right, I'll see you guys on the Market Open on Monday. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all. And yeah, thank you every day from the bottom of my heart, showing up every morning and afternoon. It means the world. And weeks like this just remind you, why we keep doing this and, why it's one of the greatest journeys.